Hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels, and welcome to our 10th season of ABC's Monday Night Baseball. We'll have 8 Monday games for you over the next 2 months, then 3 Sunday games of significance in September, and we will wrap up our coverage in October with the 1985 World Series. Well, last year, when Jim Palmer joined us in the booth, there was some question as to whether or not he would finish the season in the booth or on somebody's active roster. He is back again in '85. Are you here for the duration?
I think so. All it took was one trip to the ballpark, put on the uniform, throw a couple of baseballs, and have my shoulder hurt again, and I decided I made the best decision by being retired.
You'll be here until Howard Cosell, I'm sure, begins to prod you, and the coach will join us on the 17th of June. All right, you're on the sidelines now. You can be an impartial observer. What do you find significant about the division races thus far in '85?
Well, in the National League, in the East, everybody expected the Cubs and the Mets to battle it out. I think this big surprise there is the Montreal Expos. They were here over the weekend. I talked to some of the players. Everybody said, gee, they picked us for last. Raines is not playing particularly well. I mean, he's not off to a great start. Dawson, even though his knees are healthy, is struggling a little bit, was hitting the left eye or under the left eye yesterday. So that's a big surprise. Their young pitchers have come along. Over the National League West, everybody expects the defending National League champions, the San Diego Padres, to win, and they are doing that, even though Alan Wiggins hasn't been playing. I think the big surprise over there, in a negative way, I guess, is the Atlanta Braves. Bob Horner's back, a somewhat healthy Bob Horner. You get Bruce Sutter. You expect him to close games. Hasn't had that many opportunities. When he has, of course, he's pitched very well. I think the big surprise in the National League West, though, is the Cincinnati Reds. They were, I think, 72-90 last year. Pete Rose came over late in the summer. Did an excellent job the last year. I think his enthusiasm is carried over this year. They're 4 games over 500 and playing well.
In a way, the Dodgers are sort of lucky to be where they are. They're only 4.5 back. They've had a lot of injuries. They've had pitching problems to a certain extent. Alejandro Pena may be finished not only for the year but for his career. The Dodgers and the Mets, neither team is hitting, but the Mets seem to be hitting in more timely fashion because they're in first. The Dodgers are in fourth. That's a capsule look at the National League. What about your feelings about the American League right now?
Well, Toronto, they went out and got Caudle, a great relief pitcher, got Lavelle, made a kind of a somewhat big trade for them, trading Davy Collins and Alfredo Griffin over to Oakland to get Caudle, and that's worked out very well because Tony Fernandez has come along, and they're in first place. The Orioles in Detroit are in just about a virtual tie for second place. I kind of expected the Tigers to struggle a little bit. Nobody could expect them to have that great start. And when you go 35-5, it gives you a lot of confidence. They didn't have that start this year. Over in the American League West, I think the biggest surprise to me, of course, is the Angels. Gene Mauch has come over there. He's brought that intensity that he's always had that has made him maybe probably the best, worst manager, as some people have called him, because he never really won, but they're playing very well. The biggest surprise to me is the Minnesota Twins. Everybody talked about their weak bullpen. For them to have a 9-game losing streak and then a 10-game losing streak with their hitting seems inconceivable.
Well, right now we'll turn our attention to tonight's game as the Dodgers take on the New York Mets at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. The pitching matchup, Ed Lynch against unbeaten Orel Hershiser. Mets lineup tonight has the switch-hitting Mookie Wilson leading off in center field and the platooning Wally Backman at second base. Then Keith Hernandez, the Gold Glove first baseman, hits third, with Gary Carter over from Montreal batting in the cleanup spot. George Foster struggling at .230, bats fifth, plays left. Danny Heap platooning in right field, batting sixth. Howard Johnson gets the start tonight at third base, with Rafael Santana, who was rested yesterday, at shortstop. And the pitcher is Ed Lynch with a 3-3 record and an earned run average of an even 3. The Dodgers still in the dugout and ready to take the field. There is Jerry Royce, who pitched well the other night. The Dodger pitching, no matter what happens through the years, injury-wise, always seems to come around for them. And again, this year it has as well. And the man going to the mound tonight is pitching at the moment as well as anybody in the National League. Orel Hershiser, who is 5-0. And leads the league in earned run average at 1.70. For the Dodgers, it is Greg Brock at first base. He's been bothered by both elbows thus far this season. Steve Sachs, who started the season with an injured lower leg at second base. Mariano Duncan was their opening night second baseman because Steve was hurt. Dave Anderson has had a bad back, and he's just off the disabled list.
Ladies and gentlemen,
making the start at shortstop. And they go with Bob Baylor, who was the original Toronto Blue Jay, first man they ever picked in the expansion draft when they came into the league in '77. He plays third. The outfield has R.J. Reynolds in left field. He's been the hottest of the Dodgers of late, which is not saying much. Pedro Guerrero is now back in center. He was at third up until a couple of nights ago. Lasorda's moved him to the outfield, and Ken Landreau has gone from center to a platoon role in right field. Back of the plate for the Dodgers is the man who blocks it as well as anybody in baseball, Mike Scioscia. And on the mound is Orel Hershiser in his second full season with the Dodgers. And Jim, he's the kind of guy who looks and has the composure of a man who's been around for about 10 years.
Well, he certainly does. And overpowering sinker, right around 90 miles per hour. Great curveball throw anytime. And a changeup he uses sparingly. But since he's been taken out of the bullpen last year, when 9-6 last year, 5-0 this year, he's been an outstanding, maybe the outstanding pitcher in the National League.
I talked with Dodger manager Tommy Lasorda prior to the game. His team one game under 500, and here's how he assesses the season thus far.
for the New York Mets, coaching at first base.
We are better than we have shown. I think that we're going to turn things around. We've had problems not scoring any runs. Now, the discouraging thing is that we are not knocking in the runs. We have led the league with leaving men on base. But the encouraging thing is that we are getting the men on base. And that's important if they're there, because if they weren't getting on base, I would be really worried.
Lasorda assessing some of the Dodger problems. Ever the optimist, though. And he has reason for optimism tonight with Hershiser on the mound in the twilight. Here we go with Mookie Wilson leading off and looking at a strike. Mookie Wilson has recently started wearing glasses for day games, and right now it's bright enough to be a day game. The lights are on, but taking no effect at 5:11 Los Angeles time.
Well, you mentioned twilight, Alan. If you're going to be a pitcher, this is the time you want to get out there. And there you saw that excellent curveball. It's the time when you want to get ahead of the hitters because they don't see the ball. They don't see the spin on the ball. And I know I think back to when the Orioles used to go into Anaheim and you'd have Nolan Ryan, a hard thrower coming in there in twilight. It's very hard to see. And you go back to last year's All-Star game. Dwight Gooden and Valenzuela overpowering at this time of day. But you got to throw strikes.
In the twilight last year in San Francisco, the strike two pitch got him swinging on a pitch in the dirt. He'll get a lot of strikeouts that way, and the ball rolls back to Hershiser, and that's unusual to see the pitcher get an assist after a strikeout, with the first baseman getting the put out here. But this happens a lot as Hershiser keeps the ball down.
Well, you talked about Scioscia's ability to block the plate when runners coming. Here you see his ability to block the plate on a curveball in the dirt. He got right in front of it, let the ball bounce up into him, went right out to Hershiser. He made the play for the out.
In his last outing Wednesday against Philadelphia, Hershiser had the Phillies doing exactly that. He was throwing pitches down in the dirt, bouncing them, and getting them to either strike out or ground out for the most part, en route to his 5th win of the season. Wally Backman looks at a strike, and it's 0-1. Wally Backman is a switch hitter, but for the most part, he might as well just be a left-handed hitter because Kelvin Chapman plays against almost all left-handers in a total platoon situation, and the count is 1-1. Backman's been up only 9 times against right-handed pitching, against left-handed pitching, and 110 times against the righties. Baylor edge of the grass at third as Backman fouls it at the plate. Wally is not averse to laying one down. Dave Johnson, former teammate of Jim Palmer at Baltimore in his 2nd season with the Mets.
Certainly doing a fine job when you consider that. And of course, he said the key to this ball club was his young pitchers. They won 90 games last year, 6 less than the Cubs won. But he said if his pitchers come around, his young pitchers, then they have a chance to win. And when you consider that they're 13 games over 500 and Strawberry's been out a long time, they're playing a lot better, I think, than he even expected they would.
1-2 to Backman is in the dirt. Strawberry, by the way, is with the team. He has traveled with the team since going on the disabled list. And it appears he'll be ready to play The Mets are hopeful anyway by the end of June. Meanwhile, they go with Danny Heath and the rookie John Christensen platooning in right field.
Well,
sort of scary when you think about it. If the Mets begin to hit, or had they hit to this point, it might be 4 or 5 games in front.
Well, they're scoring about 3.5 runs a game. Davey said if they get a little bit over 4, then they can really have some fun. I think what he's pointing at is that their pitching has been so excellent that will give them a chance to have maybe a little bit more enjoyable job as manager. Right now, they've had to win the 1-run ball games, and they've been able to do that.
And the Dodgers, for the most part, haven't. And in good measure, it's been because of very shabby defense. The Dodgers, by the way, did not make an error over the weekend. The first time this year they've gone 3 games in a row without making one as Hershiser strikes Backman out. So he begins with 2 strikeouts, 1 on a pitch in the dirt, and this one that had Backman going after it low.
Well, we talked about that sinker. The bottom drops out. It's 3-2. He looks like the ball's going to stay up, just sinks down below the bat. When you have that kind of stuff, it's really tough to lay off that pitch.
Keith Hernandez, numbers don't look very bad, but Keith will be the first to tell you he's not particularly happy with the year he's having. He would be second in the lineup tonight in terms of average. Wilson would be leading those starting tonight at 282, and Hernandez next at 281 in what has been a pitcher's year in the National League. Most of the averages are down.
Well, again, manager Davey Johnson talked about how almost every ball club in the National League improved their pitching. And there you see Davey Johnson. I think one of the big pluses for him as a manager is that he came from a pitching-oriented ball club like the Orioles, or at least an organization that has continuity from their minor leagues all the way to the major league club.
Two and one. As of a couple of days ago, there was only one team in the league, the Pirates, with a team ERA of over 4 runs a game. And ironically, the Pirates led the league in ERA last year collectively. Chopper going to be a tough play. Hershiser wheels, throws, and gets him. Boy, he really helps himself, doesn't he? Strikes out Wilson and Backman on pitches in the dirt, and then throws out Hernandez. It was the only way they were going to get him.
Well, you talk about a complete pitcher. This is why he's 5-0. You can throw the curveball and the sinker, but when you make that kind of play, as you said, you're really helping yourself.
So the Mets are gone in order as Hershiser goes back to the dugout. End of a half. New York nothing, and the Dodgers coming up. Dodger lineup tonight. Steve Sachs, as usual, leads off at second base. Ken Landreau moving over to right field, hitting second. R.J. Reynolds hitting .277, leading the regulars. Pedro Guerrero is in center field, batting 4th, and then comes Greg Brock with 6 homers this season. Mike Scioscia is in the 6th spot, doing the catching. Bob Baylor plays 3rd, batting 7th. Dave Anderson, who went to Albuquerque for rehabilitation, bats 8th, and there is Orel Hershiser, striking out 2 and then throwing out Hernandez in the top of the inning. Foster, Wilson, and Heath in the outfield. Johnson at 3rd, Santana at short, Backman at 2nd, Hernandez at 1st, with Carter back of the plate, and Ed Lynch on the mound. An anomaly of sorts in the sense Ed Lynch, big at 6'5", good basketball player in high school, 207. You think of a guy that size as being a flamethrower, but he's anything but.
No, he does not have great velocity, but what he does have is the ability to throw good strikes, change speeds. He has a slider and a changeup that he uses with a fastball. For him to be successful, he has to get the ball over the plate, and he has to keep the ball down. And here you see Steve Sachs, typical good leadoff man, will take a walk, high ball hitter. For Lynch to get him out, he's going to have to keep the ball down and maybe get him out with breaking balls.
Lynch does not hurt himself. He's walked only 8 in 66 innings. And Sachs takes a strike. Ed Lynch in his last start, he's been prone to shaky starts. He gave up 3 runs in the first inning to the Giants, then shut them out through 7, and the Mets came up with 4 in the 8th, and they won the game. Hernandez fields, makes the play himself, and Sachs is out number 1. 3-1, his career mark against the Dodgers, and all 3 victories have come in this ballpark. This year, his 1 start resulted in a loss. In fact, he was matched against Hershiser a week ago Friday at Shea Stadium. In that series, the Dodgers won games 1 and 2, and then the Mets came back and won 3 and 4. 0-1 on Ken Landreau.
Well, you look at a guy like Ed Lynch with the pitching repertoire that he has, you would think that he would be successful against a team like the Dodgers because they have a lot of young players, primarily fastball hitters. He can change speeds, gets behind, he can still get his breaking ball over. Should be effective.
0-2 the count. Mets rotation right now with the ace, of course, Dwight Gooden in his second year, and then Ron Darling, who pitched Saturday in San Diego. Lynch, they've got Sid Fernandez, and Calvin Schiraldi came off the disabled list when 5 innings yesterday got the win, and Doug Sisk came out of the bullpen for the save.
Well, I was talking to manager Davey Johnson. I said, why is Ed Lynch pitching? After last year, he was 4-8 as a starter, 5-0 as a long man in the bullpen. You would think that he would use him in that capacity. But he said we lost Bruce Perrine, had just had arthroscopic surgery on his shoulder, and Sid Fernandez had an awful spring. Therefore, he got a chance to start, and he's been doing a good job.
1 out, bases empty. Bottom of the first inning with no score. And the 0-2 to Landreau is high.
And you can see Gary Carter, who's the Mets catcher, he's just trying to establish the fastball on the inside part of the plate. Kenny Landreau, and I was Tommy Lasorda just said he just cannot understand why he's not hitting a little bit better. He's the type of guy that they have to get consistency out of to score some runs.
Took something off it, and it's whacked down the line, but foul, and the count stays 1-2. Tough way to come up with a souvenir. He's got a $5 baseball and a $6 dry cleaning bill. 1-2 the count. Gorgeous day. Near cloudless sky. Very mild temperature, about 70 degrees. Chopped to third, fielded on the run by Johnson, who throws him out. Funny thing about Howard Johnson, who came over from Detroit, his reputation was always good hit, no field. And this year he's been making the plays defensively and hitting 154.
Well, last year, he, as really about a second-year player, he had 12 home runs, 50 RBIs. Was not known for his glove, as you said. And Davey Johnson says Sparky gave us the wrong information. We thought we were getting a guy that could help us score some runs, but he really has done a good job for him defensively. Obviously, they'd like to have him hit a little bit more, and he is a switch hitter. All of 12 of his home runs were from the left side.
Here's R.J. Reynolds, not the one who merged with Nabisco. With 2 out and the bases empty in the bottom of the first. Hitting it toward the gap in left center field, and that one is up the alley, bouncing off the 385 side, and a double for R.J. Reynolds, who's been the hottest Dodger.
Just a fastball. It doesn't get all the way. You see Carter's target right down the middle. Lynch throws it just about where the glove is. But Reynolds, who has been hot, goes the other way. He's that type of hitter. Right up the gap for a double.
Now we'll see if Guerrero can bring him in. Pedro has had problems this year. Pedro is not going to earn his $7 million 5-year salary with his glove. They moved him from third back to the outfield, even though he was doing a relatively capable job at third. But he's going to earn his salary with a bat and with RBIs. And when you have only 18 and the season's near the 1/3 mark, you're just not doing it. Strike. 0-1.
Well, he just said he didn't like playing in the infield. He prefers the outfield. There's not as many bad hops. I was talking to the infield coach, Monty Basco. He said that Pedro has a tendency sometimes to maybe just kind of relax a little bit. You can do it a little bit more in the outfield.
1-1. So now they've got him in center. Remember, they had him in right and in center last year. And one of the reasons they sent Ron Say to Chicago a couple of years back was to move Guerrero into third and make room for Mike Marshall in right field. And that's when they let Garvey go. And Brock came into play first as Guerrero fouls it away. 1-2. It's interesting in the sense that a lot of the Dodger fans now are saying, well, what happened is we got rid of the key guys at once. And Lasorda's retort is, hey, listen, we won the division the year we got rid of those fellas in '83. even though they lost the playoffs to Philadelphia. But now, all of a sudden, Garvey's been in the World Series with San Diego. And
Say, of course, had a great year with Chicago last year. Struggling a little bit this year.
And Lopes is having a great season thus far.
Well, there's no doubt that players do get old. I think the bottom line, again, is that they felt that, as the Dodgers have always been, going back to Branch Rickey, they have been a team that has utilized their farm system, and they felt that they had good players at a minor league level. It's just really hasn't worked out as well as they expected it to.
Still trying to find the right combination. It seems every night Tommy Lasorda has different names and different positions on the lineup card.
And that presents a problem right there.
2-2 pitch. He reaches for it, loops it into left field for a base hit, and Reynolds will score to make it 1-0 L.A. Pedro Guerrero with a single to drive in Reynolds with 2 out in the first inning.
Well, sometimes when you make a good pitch, you don't always get a good result. And here you see Guerrero strong enough. He goes right out on the outside corner and just loops it into left field. If you don't have his strength, you can't hit the ball that way.
Guerrero at first, and Greg Brock the batter. Brock missing some time early in the season. Both elbows have bothered him. Still second on the club in homers with 6. Takes low, ball 1. Lynch, who gave up 3 runs in the first inning the other day, trailing now. Brock hit 2 home runs off Lynch at Shea Stadium a week ago Friday. 2-0 the count.
Well, Brock's kind of an anomaly where most left-handed hitters like the ball down in the strike zone. He has very good power when you get the ball up, whether it's a breaking ball or a fastball out over the plate. Valenzuela pitched against Gooden. Gooden got a changeup up, and he powered it over right down the right field line for a home run.
Breaking pitch for a strike, and the count is 2-1. The people with the Dodgers who watch Brock every day see him on days when they say, gee, he's just about ready. We think he's there, and he's the player that we thought he'd be. And then the next night, it's as if it's somebody else wearing that same uniform. He's been very inconsistent. Ball 3, 3-1 the count.
Well, I saw it in Baltimore. I saw it with Doug DeCinces, who was a fine third baseman. And when you replace a guy that is almost a legend, and Steve Garvey, even though maybe he's not a legend in the sense that Duke Snider was, or Pee Wee Reese, was an awfully good first baseman, and still is. When you have those kind of expectations, it's sometimes hard to live up to them.
Full count, 3-2, and so you can see Carter motioning to remind the infielders that the runner will be going. Kibler is calling the balls and strikes with Stello, DeMuth, and Fremming on the bases. 3 balls, 2 strikes to count on Greg Brock. Guerrero at first base, and now Hernandez can play off the bag. Pedro will go with the pitch with 2 out. Popped up in foul ground and drifting back out of play. So Guerrero will come back and we'll do it again. Matchup tomorrow night is a rematch. Valenzuela against Gooden. They faced each other a week ago Saturday in New York, with Fernando taking the measure of the Mets' second-year man. Tonight's meeting the 5th of the season between these two clubs. They're 2-2 as Brock fouls it away again.
It almost seems like if you ever go to a Dodger-Met game now, you're going to get a good pitching matchup because their teams surround so much around pitching.
Dimensions here at Dodger Stadium, where the fences were moved in a few years back. Used to be a pretty good pitcher's park.
Actually, they moved home plate out.
Yeah, to be technical.
Don Drysdale told me that last year.
Right.
That's the only reason I know that.
And it's popped up in foul ground. Back out of play again. So once more, Guerrero doing wind sprints between first and second. Will come back. Pedro on the first 3-2 pitch got all the way around second. On the second foul ball, he was within about 3 steps of second base. And on this one, he was only about 2/3 of the way to the bag.
Well, he has good speed. When you think of home run hitters, you normally think of guys that can't steal bases, but he's stolen over 20 bases. Hit 32 home runs 2 years in a row. Has Greg Brock 44 home runs at San Antonio. Think they don't expect a lot when you do that?
Foul away again. This time Guerrero gets only halfway to second base.
And that distance is going to decrease every time he fouls one off.
It's an interesting little factor in the sense that if a guy doubles on the first 3-2 pitch, the runner going would have a much better chance of scoring than doubling on the fifth 3-2 pitch. Guerrero goes, and it's all academic as Brock strikes out. But the Dodgers take the lead in the first with a run, 2 hits, lead 1. End of 1-0 Dodgers. Dodger pitcher Oral Hershiser, I asked him before the game to analyze his success this season.
I think the biggest difference between me now and 2 years ago is that I'm being more aggressive with the hitters. I'm going after them, and then that makes them hit my pitch. You'll see them swing at pitches out of the strike zone now, whereas before when I got behind in the count 2-0 and 3-0, they could sit on their pitch, and it was the hitter's pitch instead of the pitcher's pitch. But now I'm making them hit my pitch, which is a ball more towards the corner and more lower in the strike zone.
Proof positive first inning for Oral Leonard Hershiser, the 4th. And there's an Oral, the 5th. 10 months old as Gary Carter whacks the first pitch in the second inning in the left field for a base hit. First hit for the Mets as Carter gets aboard. And George Foster comes up.
Well, Gary Carter has an unusually open stance. If you can get the ball away, you can be successful. We watch this curveball. Hangs on the inside part of the plate, right in his wheelhouse. Just kind of lines it into left. Lucky that ball stayed in the park. A pretty good pitch to hit. And I guess that's why he singled the left field.
George Foster, who as usual takes a lot of time, and like Mookie Wilson goes to the glasses now in the sunshine.
That's right. They call Mookie and George Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder.
I wonder how long the fad will last.
Well, it's really not a fad. Apparently, they did some eye testing, and their eyes are light sensitive, and therefore, in situations like this or in day games, they don't see as well. So they've gone to the sunglasses. They're not corrective type of lenses. It's just to condition their eyes so they can see better, and it seems to work because Mookie is having a good year and George is starting to hit.
I say fad in the sense I remember several years ago Johnny Bench came out to a night game with yellow glasses. If you look at Foster's lack of success against Hershiser, Bench was in a horrendous slump, wore yellow-tinted glasses one night in Cincinnati, hit a home run and I think doubled, and then everybody figured this would be the new fad. Of course, by Thursday of the following week, the glasses were back at home.
Well, they use amber glasses at night because it cuts down on the glare. I never even knew Johnny Bench wore glasses.
He tried them at that time because he was going through a terrible slump. And everybody figured that he'd found something that would become a trend. Of course, it never did. 3-0 the count. Hershiser clocked at 91 on that last pitch. The highest rating thus far in the first 2 innings has been 93 miles an hour. 3-0 the count on Foster. And he goes after it and chops it foul. 3-1.
Well, Davey Johnson knows his team has not been scoring a whole lot of runs, at least not as many as he'd like. And 3-0 with a guy like George Foster that has some experience, it's a good situation to let him swing.
And the way the bottom of the order has been going with Johnson and Santana and in the pitcher's spot, it's not a bad idea. 3-1 the count. Shallow center, Sack spinning around and stays with it to make the catch. Hershiser coming back to get Foster for the first out of the second inning. And Danny Heath will come up. Heath being platooned with John Christensen. hit a home run yesterday in San Diego, though it took a while for it to be made official as Fred Brocklander, the first base umpire, had signaled foul and was overruled by Eddie Montague, the plate umpire, as it turned out.
That's a perfect example where umpires who are supposed to work together did work together. It just took a while.
On the subject of umpires, I think most of you probably saw the tape of Chuck Cottier's act in New York yesterday. Upset over a call, dislodging a base. In fact, later on, we've got the tape of it. If you haven't seen it, we'll try to run it in for you.
I kind of wonder if, I know Earl Weaver's sitting down there in Miami when he saw Chuck yesterday, if that just kind of made him feel like he ought to come back and manage again.
Well, I saw a quote from Billy Martin that was unbelievable. As it's grounded to the right side, Sack goes to Anderson, one, and back to first for the double play. We'll get to Martin's remark in a moment as the Mets are gone in the second inning. No runs, one hit, no one left. 1-0 L.A. middle of the second. There is Darryl Strawberry. His hand is still wrapped, and as we mentioned earlier, the Mets are figuring he'll be back by the end of June. His club trails 1-0, bottom of the second inning, as Mike Scioscia leads off by popping it up to Howard Johnson. One away. Talking about Chuck Cottier, the incident yesterday, I read that quote from Martin, which was just fabulous when they asked Billy about it. He said, well, I guess Chuck has to learn to control himself. You know Martin had to be suppressing a smile in the dugout.
He tried to. He couldn't quite do it. I mean, that's vintage. I don't know what you want to call it. Earl Weaver, Billy Martin, anybody. I mean, if you're an umpire, obviously you don't like to see that, but I think the fans enjoyed it.
Bob Baylor up high, especially when it's the visiting manager, because you know it's been a decision for your team.
Well, I think another funny thing was to get the base out of the post, he had to ask Dave Winfield, would you mind, excuse me, and move off the bag.
Moving over is Wally Backman. That takes care of Bob Baylor. And there are two away here in the second inning with Dave Anderson coming up.
Number 10 is shortstop.
American League scores. California on top in the West and leading Baltimore. Detroit leads Seattle in the third. Cleveland and Boston are tied in the third inning, and the Yankees have the lead 1-0 in the third over the A's. Dave Anderson on the disabled list from late April. Just got back from Albuquerque, went to AAA for a couple of weeks for rehabilitation. Rejoined the club yesterday and in the lineup tonight at shortstop. Dodgers still have Bill Russell. He's known as the Dean here. Played in more games than any other Los Angeles Dodger. But Russell, pretty much last year, relegated to a backup role, though he has played quite a bit this year because of injuries. 3-0 the count.
Well, the Dodgers really like Dave Anderson. Has great range, good throwing ability. Doesn't hit with power, but is a pretty good average hitter. The problem is that he has a chronic back problem. Got some series of injections, which apparently alleviated the problem, at least for now.
3-1. They're hopeful of at least getting that middle infield squared away with Sachs and Anderson now healthy. Mariano Duncan had been playing because of the injuries at both second and short as Anderson draws the walk. So Lynch issues only his 9th walk this season in 67 and 2/3 innings. And here is Hershiser, who is 2 for 21 as a hitter.
Not exactly what you want to do with a pitcher coming up and 2 outs. You know, if you throw strikes to Anderson, you have a chance of getting him out. Now you have the pitcher coming up this inning instead of starting off next inning.
Lynch has made 9 starts this year. He has not walked more than 1 in any one game. As it's fouled away, Hershiser trying to bunt for a hit. 0-1 with Steve Sachs on deck. Ed Lynch, born in Brooklyn, but he grew up in Miami and went to school at the University of South Carolina. Also has a business administration master's degree from the University of Miami. Walks per 9 innings. Only Eckersley has had better control than Lynch thus far this season. Andy Hawkins, fourth on the list right there, is the man who's won 10. 1-1. Anderson held on by Hernandez. Dodgers on top 1-0 in the second inning. Hit to left field and deep over Foster's head, and George has to play it at the fence. Anderson, running with a crack of the bat, is being waved in and scores on a double by Hershiser.
Well, you can see for yourself, this pitch is, again, 1-1 fastball. He wants to throw a strike right down the middle. We saw Hershiser help himself with a great defensive play, and here he helps himself with a double. First extra base career of his career, scoring a run.
So Hershiser, who had 12 singles in his tenure with the Dodgers, picks up a double and an RBI, and it's 2-0. So Lynch, after getting Sosa and Baylor, walks the 8-hitter and then gives up a double to the pitcher, and Steve Sachs comes up. And Sachs tries to bunt his way on. 0-1 the count.
Well, normally with pitchers up, you play the percentages. You play shallow. But as Earl Weaver always told the outfielders in Baltimore, with 2 outs, the worst thing that can happen is have the ball hit over your head. George Foster playing in, not respecting a pitcher's power, because as statistics show, he only has hit 12 singles, and the ball goes over his head, and thus the run scores.
Hershiser seeking his 6th win, the league ERA leader at the moment. Really helping himself tonight at the bat, and with a good play on Keith Hernandez in the first inning to throw him out. 2-1.
And Ed Lynch knows, I mean, he's pitching against a guy that's only given up 1.7 runs a game. He's already given up 2. Guy's pitching well. It's a very important batter for him.
3 balls and 1 strike to count.
Take that gamble if you don't make your pitch. Even though Lynch doesn't like to walk people, you might end up walking him, and then you have to take a gamble that you can get Landreau out, who's up next.
Full count on Steve Sachs. Hershiser at second, 2 down in the second inning. And Sachs is on. So Lynch, for the first time this season, has walked as many as 2 in a game. And Kent Landreau comes up. And that provokes a visit from Mel Stottlemyre, the Mets pitching coach, on his way to the mound. Interesting little note. Since the San Diego Padres came into the league in 1969, which gave California 3 teams in the National League, the Mets have never swept or won the series on each West Coast road trip. In other words, they have not gone into L.A., San Diego, and San Francisco. As Gorman starts to throw, Tom Gorman in the Mets bullpen. And that's a period that encompasses 16 years. So the Mets have had a lot of struggles out here in California, but they took 2 straight from the Giants. Then they won 2 out of 3 from San Diego over the weekend. But trailing here in the first of a 3-game series with the Dodgers. Takes low, ball 1. Lined into center field, but Wilson is right there and makes the catch to retire the side. Another run for the Dodgers, and at the end of 2, LA 2 and the Mets nothing. The New York Mets have the best record in the National League, 29-16. I asked Gary Carter if he felt this was the best team in the league.
Well, I'd like to think that we are one of the best, if not the best. It's just that, you know, we've gone through a lot of adversity so far. We've had a lot of injuries, and yet we've still been able to hold up our end of it. You know, our pitching has just come through outstandingly, and it's been a good feeling because we haven't really been hitting that much. We've been getting some timely hits, and everybody has made some great contributions in a winning way, but it just kind of shows the character on this ball club.
As we said before, Jim, when you think about it, you look at these averages. Foster at 230 and Carter at 240 and Hernandez at 281, which is not sensational for Keith, and Strawberry hurt. And the Mets 10th in the league in hitting. It is amazing that they're in first place.
Well, timely pitching, timely hitting. Keith Hernandez said it best. He says when they're out there, we get them in. And so far, they've been able to do that.
There's Lasorda's book, and Johnstone, I'm sure, is going to get a fee for carrying that signboard. Jay is on the disabled list, but figuring out another way to earn his keep as he gets a plug-in for Sir Thomas and his best-selling book, or at least he tells me it's best-selling anyway, even though he keeps giving copies away. Johnson takes up high, ball 1. 1-0 on Howard. Howard Johnson, switch hitter, came over from Detroit. Lines it back through the middle, almost taking Hershiser's head off, and hit number 2 for the Mets. The thing on the center for Johnson, and Rafael Santana, the shortstop, comes up.
Rafael Santana.
Well, here you hear Heisher's a pitch. The line drives right back up the middle. One of those ones, again, when you're pitching, you try to get the glove up, and if you can deflect the ball, it's great, but when the ball's hit that hard, really you want to get out of the way. Especially if you look at the pitcher's mound, you can kind of see that the ball comes right out of the shadow, right into the sunlight. Probably very hard for Hershiser to even pick the ball up.
Very tough time of day right now. It's 5:52 in Los Angeles. Lights on, but really having very little effect. And a close play at first base as Johnson gets back.
When we talked about Orel Hershiser's fielding ability, you saw the double. He also has a pretty good move and gets rid of the ball quickly, which gives Scotia a much better opportunity to throw a runner out. One of the keys to keeping a guy from running.
15 innings at Candlestick today. Montreal 4, the Giants 2. Frank Williams, the losing pitcher, cost himself the game by throwing a ball away on a bunt play in the 15th inning. And so the Expos, who lost 2 out of 3 here over the weekend, go up north and win there. And the Expos began the day 3 games back with the Cubs 2 behind. 1-1 on Santana. Raphael filling a hole in a way. The Mets had problems at shortstop last year. They had Jose Oquendo and then Ron Gardenhire, who is again on the disabled list right now. And then they moved U.B. Brooks to shortstop at the end of the year, you'll recall, and Brooks was packaged in the Carter deal. So they gave the job to Santana as you see the play again. And he's been doing a pretty good job, at least defensively.
Well, he's not hitting as much as last year.
Hits it down the left field line, and it is a foul ball. Just foul. Just foul. Bruce Fleming, the third base umpire, going down there to call it, as Santana just discovers it. There is Bruce, who has been in the league for 15 years now. You be the judge. Very close, but no argument from Bud Harrelson, the third base umpire. Third base coach Bud Harrelson, as you look at Bruce Fleming. Subject of, and there is Harrelson.
We talked about Hershiser's great sinker, great curveball, fielding ability, batting ability, and also you need luck. Not a particularly good pitch. Ball's fouled by an inch or two. Instead of being a double, it's a strike. position to make a better pitch here.
And instead of second and third, it's a 1-ball, 2-strike count, and maybe a double play. Anderson backs up, goes to Sachs 1, back to first, and the luck continues. So instead of second and third and nobody out, bases empty and 2 out by half an inch.
Well, they always say baseball's a game of inches. Here we see just look like a sinker inside. See Davey Anderson, perfect throw to Sachs, relay to first. When you throw a lot of sinkers, you're going to get a lot of ground balls, and when you have runners on, you're going to, if your infield can turn them, and that's something the Dodgers haven't been able to do.
They've turned 2 double plays, though, tonight. One hopper back a second, and Anderson throws out Lynch. So Hershiser has faced a minimum 9, and after 2.5, it remains Dodgers 2, Mets nothing. Al Michaels and Jim Palmer in Los Angeles. Season premiere of Monday Night Baseball. Who's hot over the past week? UL Washington hit .545 over the past week for Montreal, Chili Davis and Davey Concepcion. And you can see R.J. Reynolds, who has a hit tonight, a double, and has scored a run. Who's not? Well, Von Hayes had a terrible week. Jose Uribe of the Giants. Kenny Landreau has made that dubious list. Darryl Porter got hurt over the weekend. Glenn Wilson of Philadelphia. Boy, the Phillies are really having their problems. Darryl Porter went on the disabled list today. That won't help the Cardinals, who are trying to hang in there 6 games back in the East. Dislocated finger for the Cardinal catcher. R.J. Reynolds, who has, for the moment, taken over as the Dodger left fielder, though they've done so much juggling and shifting. You can't say permanent. Permanent here has been about 3 games of late. 0-1.
Sure has. Even last year. Played a little bit of left, a little bit of center, a little bit of right. When you're inexperienced and you come to the major leagues, it's hard enough to play one position, but when you're playing all over the place, it just presents more problems.
Dodgers leading 2-0 in the bottom of the third. Reynolds, Guerrero, and Brock, the 3, 4, and 5 hitters. Changeup is hit foul, and the count is 0-2.
Well, R.J. Reynolds is not exactly the type of guy that's going to hit a lot of home runs. As you see him right here, he can steal a base. So we saw that he has alley power. He hit the double up the gap in left center. But he can run, can switch hit. Pretty good defensive player. But again, when you're playing all over the place, it's really hard to develop any continuity. A lot of people say when you play the outfield, what's the difference between playing left and right and center? There's a big difference. Probably the easiest position is to play center if you have any kind of speed, but the ball moves in different directions when you're playing left and right. It does take getting used to.
And last year, Lasorda had the guys moving around. Even though he had several different combinations, he didn't keep them in the same position. Shattered back, grounded down to short, and Santana throws him out. Barrel of the bat winding up about 100 feet from the plate. So 1 gone in the third inning, and Pedro Guerrero, who singled to drive in a run, stands in. The end of that bat for R.J.
Well, that shows it. You don't have to be overpowering to break a bat. Just got to make good pitches, and Ned Lynch just got the ball right in on his fist, and you saw the result there.
Every time I see a bat break like that and wind up where it did, of course, I think about Steve Yeager in 1976, the night that Bill Russell broke his bat in San Diego, and the barrel of the bat wound up in Yeager's neck. Foul away. It was a serious injury, but fortunately for Steve, he was able to recover from it in a relatively short period of time, though they told him later that his life was saved by maybe half an inch. So many of the splinters had lodged in his neck very close to his windpipe. That was in '76, and Yeager is still here. One pitch toward the gap in right center field, and that one is up the alley. It looked like Keith might have had a play on it. And into second goes Guerrero with a double. So it's a single and a double for Pedro. Keith Keith is looking into the sun, and that may have hurt his chances of making the catch.
Well, we said Ed Lynch has to make good pitches. Here you see another fastball right in the middle of the plate. Guerrero has a lot of strength, just hits it to, almost to the warning track in right center. I think what you said, Al, about the sun, very tough sun field. Had to go a long way to make that catch anyway.
Greg Brock struck out in the first inning. That's been Lynch's only strikeout, and he gets under it and hits it in the air to shallow right field. Keith, with Wilson behind him, makes the play. And there are two down with Socha coming up. So Guerrero at second, and Socha, who popped out in the second inning, stands in. Ed Lynch came up initially in 80, then went back to the minors at the beginning of 81, and then back to the Mets. To show you how many changes they've made in terms of continuous service right now on the team, he's second of the 25. Only Rusty Staub has been there continuously longer than Lynch. Staub, of course, had been with him and then left and then came back in 81. In a way, though, Jim, that's really not unusual. I think one of the things that's happened in the 80s is that the turnover has been greater and faster than it's ever been.
Well, mainly because of free agency. Bill Russell, I think, has the most continuous service of any major league players with one club, and that's somewhere right around 15 years. After I retired, he became, I think I was the leader. It was something close to 18 years.
Pitch is inside. Not only are you seeing the rosters being turned over, the teams are getting healthier in a bigger hurry than they used to. And on the other side of the coin, you can go from the top to the bottom faster than it used to happen for the most part. Case in point, last year, the Mets and the Cubs going from 5th and 6th to 1st and 2nd. Chopper near second, fielded by Santana, who throws him out, and Guerrero is stranded at second. No runs, one hit, and a man left. We go to the fourth with the Dodgers leading the Mets 2-0.
This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by Bud Light. The best has a taste all its own. Satisfying but never filling.
On to the fourth inning, and next week on Monday Night Baseball, a pair of games, so check your local listings. The Blue Jays go into New York, take on the Yankees, and the Cubs go to Olympic Stadium to face the Expos. Rusty Staub, the Mets pinch hitter deluxe, 2,913 games at the age of 41, wrapping up his career with the Mets as Smokey Wilson takes outside. Staub with Houston, Montreal, the Mets, Detroit, then he went back to Montreal briefly, then to Texas, and now wrapping it up in New York.
18 pinch hits last year. I used to pitch against him, a tough out. Extremely tough out.
4 for 13 as a pinch hitter this season.
Well, it seems like it might be a real easy job just sitting on there and just coming up to bat once a game, but you notice he's looking right over the railing, paying attention, because he knows he might have to hit off of Hershiker. Here we see an excellent curveball.
Wilson, 5 for 11. That's interesting, though. The times he's gone down, he has struck out. 5 for 11, but 5 of the 6 outs have been strikeouts. Squibber foul, and it's still 1-2. It's Wally Backman on deck, and he'll be followed by Keith Hernandez.
One of the biggest problems the Mets have is really finding the ideal leadoff man. If you're a Mets fan, you've been following their team. Normally, Wally Backman leads off, but he's been struggling. Davey Johnson, Wilson, up over 600 times 2 years ago, only walked 18 times, 27 walks last year, and almost 600 times at bat. Not the ideal leadoff man, but you bat Backman second and Wilson gets on, you're going to see a lot more fastballs. Makes him a better hitter.
Well, one of the reasons for the Mets' success last year was that switch when Davey Johnson came up and he had managed the Tidewater and brought Backman with him. He moved Wally into the top spot.
And he delivered, hitting 280, stealing bases. Here you see manager Davey Johnson. But your second year, the pitchers learn. They've been pitching Backman a lot differently.
Full count, 3-2 now on Wilson. Mookie's been bothered with a shoulder problem. Another look at that 2-2 pitch.
Curveball, he just misses. One of the old American League strikes, but not in the National League.
And he loses him. So Hershiser walks his first man. And for the third inning in a row, the Mets have the leadoff man on. But the other two, Carter and Johnson, were erased on double plays. As Wally Backman stands in, who struck out in the first inning.
Well, it's a perfect situation. If you're manager Davy Johnson, you have Wally Backman, who is a left-handed hitter, can take advantage of that huge hole between first and second. Have a guy on first, 46 stolen bases last year, so we know Mookie Wilson can run. This season, 16 stolen bases. Probably won't run until there's at least one out. Of course, there's no guarantee.
That's trail 2-0. Backman is the only man in the league with a 5-hit game this year. Baylor shortened up to third. Wilson doesn't go, and the pitch is outside. 1 ball and 1 strike to count.
Well, what makes Wally Backman a tough out is that he's a pretty good fastball hitter. Last year, he had good power to left center. Not as good a breaking ball hitter. In the second year in the league, the pitchers know that. They change the sequence of pitches. Just don't give him that fastball out over the plate to hit it as often. Of course, 9 bunt base hits, as you talked about earlier, Al, kind of moves the defense in, makes it easier to hit him by him. So I think he expected that they would change, and he tried to change with them.
Wilson bluffs going, and it's low. Ball 2.
Almost all of Wally Backman's bunts have been the drag variety. In other words, he's pulling the ball the right side towards the first baseman and the second baseman. If you're playing second base, you have to cheat in a couple of steps, which makes it easier also to hit the ball by the first and second baseman.
On deck is Hernandez. Hershiser doing a good job keeping Wilson close to the bag.
The toughest thing about holding a runner on right now is that Greg Brock is looking right into the sunshine. Tough sun field for the first baseman, too.
There goes Wilson. Decent jump, and it's fouled at the plate, and the count is now 2 balls and 2 strikes on Backman. Mookie with 16 steals, and he's been caught 4 times this season. Only man in double figures for the Mets.
Well, Davey Johnson, the Met manager, fairly calculated steal right there, or hit and run. You move the middle infielders. Hershiser is behind in the count 2-1, and he's a control pitcher, so you know he's most likely going to throw a strike, and most likely a fastball.
There he goes again. A good jump this time, and it's fouled away. Got a much better jump. So it remains 2 balls and 2 strikes with the Dodgers on top 2-0 in the 4th inning. Wilson with 16 steals is tied for 4th in the league. The sensational Cardinal rookie Vince Coleman has 34, and then his teammate Willie McGee is next with 20. Cardinals running wild all season.
Well, that's another thing you lose when you lose a guy like Darryl Strawberry. 27 stolen bases last year. You forget about the 97 RBIs, the 26 home runs. The man can run. Pretty good defensive outfielder. So you not only lose some power, but you lose speed.
Wilson doesn't go, and Kosher drops the ball, as it turns out. It's 3-2. Guaranteed to be going here.
Most likely. The little nuances of the games really crop up when you have this kind of situation. You have a pitcher with here we see Davey Anderson coming in to talk to Earl Hershiser. You have a situation where Hershiser certainly doesn't want to walk 2 batters in a row with a 2-run lead. You have Scotia, who's cognizant of the speed of Wilson, so he's coming up in front of the umpire. When you have speed, it creates a lot of situations to change the complexion of the game. You have Hershiser worrying about Wilson, maybe taking a little bit of his concentration off the batter.
And Mookie goes as it's shot right at the bag. Is sacked in front of second to throw him out at first, and on the play, Wilson advances. So Mookie at second with one away, and Keith Hernandez comes up. Hernandez hit a chopper over the mound, and Hershiser made an excellent play to throw him out in the first inning.
A high hopper up the middle. Again, Sachs, no, he doesn't have any play at second base. And to see just how close it is, Wally Backman running all the way, out by about a half a step.
Now Hernandez. He's trying to get to a World Series for the second time in his career. Wears the ring of the '82 Cardinals. Mets on top in the East, and they've been on top now for almost a month. So Chicago and Montreal have hung right there, and the Cardinals are trying to stay in the thick of things. Things not going very well in the Commonwealth, however, with the Pirates 12.5 back and Philadelphia trailing by 13. On Hernandez. Now 2-0. There are the standings, and again Montreal winning today, so you can make it 29 and 21 and put them at the moment 2.5 back. Mets and the Cubs, by the way the schedule has worked out this season, have not met. So they've got a couple of series coming up in the middle of the month, home and home. Wave, which became so prevalent last year, especially in places like Detroit, where it really got started in terms of Major League Baseball, though everybody seems to want to take credit for it, I guess, in Seattle and other places.
University of Washington, to be quite honest, is a rather weak wave.
It's early,
not really into it.
Well, it's still a late arriving crowd in L.A.
And early departing, right?
Early departing. In fact, some of those who come late will meet those leaving early, I'm sure. But they'll still put about 40,000 bodies in here. At least at one point tonight. Strike, 3-1. So the crowd responding to the rather weak wave rolling around Dodger Stadium, with Wilson off to his lead at second and one out in the fourth inning. 2-0 LA.
What makes Keith Hernandez such a good hitter? Last year, I think hitting about .317 is that he has a good eye, and he's run the count to 3 balls and 1 strike. He doesn't swing at too many bad pitches.
And he's on. So Hershiser has now walked 2 here in the fourth inning. And the Mets have runners at first and second with one away, and Gary Carter comes up. Carter with a home run yesterday in San Diego, and he had been in a power drought. Gary bothered by a lot of nagging injuries. Says his rib is okay right now. The only thing that half bothers him is his ankle. Grounded toward the hole. Anderson goes to Sachs for the fourth, and Wilson goes to third with Carter aboard. So 2 away with runners at first and third, and it'll leave it up to Foster.
Left fielder, George Foster.
Well, Hershiser certainly has a lot of confidence in his curveball. Last time he hung one, that one he makes a good pitch. Grounded, you see Anderson going to his right. Heavy grass here in Los Angeles. He knows he only has a chance for one, even though Carter is not particularly swift running down to first. So one thing you want to do in a situation like that, make sure of one. And Steve Sachs certainly did that, not even trying to attempt to throw to first base. I think if he had made the throw, it would have been a lot closer than he would have anticipated.
George Foster is the only Met who has hit the ball in the air tonight. He popped out in the second inning. Everything else has been on the ground.
Well, if the scenario stays the same, this is the time when the Mets get that timely hitting. To get back in this ball game with Ed Lynch struggling somewhat, you get the 2 gift walks, something that when you have a 2-run lead and see Oral Hershiser, you don't want to do. You got to get that hit when it counts, and this is certainly a time that counts.
Grounded right down to Brock. And Hershiser gets out of it. So the 2 walks do no damage as the Mets strand runners at first and third. And Foster cannot deliver.
Good low and away sinker. Ball runs back in the middle of the plate, but that sinking motion gets the ball on the ground. Greg Bark right at him. Stumbles a little bit and makes the out.
In the twilight in L.A., it's the Dodgers 2 and the Mets nothing. Here's a graphic illustrating the first 5 picks in today's amateur draft, and I know you're familiar with some of those fellas, Jim, having covered the Olympic baseball here last year.
B.J. Surhoff, good-looking catcher, and Will Clark, Mississippi State, I think it was somewhere around 28 home runs last year as a sophomore. Good-looking young left-handed power-hitting outfielder. Of course, with the aluminum, we were talking about the aluminum bats. It's really hard to tell what kind of power they have, but certainly look like a good hitter.
Bob Baylor to lead off in the bottom of the 4th inning. Bottom of the order for the Dodgers. Baylor 0 for 1, batting .205. 1-0 the count. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 2 hits for the Mets.
Bobby Baylor started in the Oriole organization. I was talking to Frank Cashin.
That's a base hit in the left field. So the Dodgers get the leadoff man on.
I was talking to Frank Cashin about Bobby Baylor. They're looking for a backup shortstop. Thought they might be able to make a deal with Al Campanis. You kind of see a pitch fastball in the middle of the plate. Good contact hitter. Struck out only once last time. Lines it in the left field. And they thought they'd make the deal, just kind of pick up the salary, and they could get a backup. And Al Campanis presented them with a list of their top prospects. He wanted one of their best prospects for Baylor. So obviously he does have some value, and you saw it right there.
Takes outside. Right now, Baylor is in the starting lineup. Again, when you talk about permanence with the Dodgers these days, 3 or 4 games illustrates permanence. Baylor now at first base, but he's at third. With Guerrero moving back to center.
If you want to stereotype your third baseman that you want in the major leagues, you want a guy that can hit for power. And Bobby Baylor certainly is a good player, but he's more of a utility type player, not the type of guy you want to have playing 162 games or 150 games at third base.
1-1. Well, you know, for years, the Dodgers, as you look at the American League, California leading Baltimore in the 5th. Tigers leading Seattle. Cleveland and Boston are still tied, and the Yankees have a 3-0 lead over Oakland. Dodgers had so many problems for so many years at third base, and then along came Ron Shea, and that ended those problems for almost a decade. Texas leading Chicago, and Milwaukee has the lead at Kansas City. But now they're right back to trying to fill a hole. To right center field, Pete moves over. 1 out. So Baylor at first, and Oral Hershiser drove in a run with a double over Foster's head in the 2nd inning comes up.
And as much as he would like to swing away now that he's hot, I would think this would be a bunt situation. 2-run lead, trying to pick up that extra run.
And Howard Johnson comes in on the grass at third. Hernandez charges from first as well as it's taken outside. Ball 1. 1-0 the count.
You talk about your differences in the leagues. I was talking to Kenny Singleton, who was here doing some of the Expo games, played as a teammate of mine in Baltimore. He said the National League difference, of course, is that you have to do a lot more pitching changes because of the DH. You don't have that over here. A lot more speed because of AstroTurf. And it seems like there's a lot more power hitters in the American League. Maybe a little bit smaller ballparks.
1-1. Yeah, the balance of power has shifted. You could see it coming a couple of years ago. The National League sort of dominated in the 70s. You'd get some arguments from American League people saying, you know, the A's were a dynasty in the early 70s, and the Yankees did well in the mid-70s. But for the most part, most agree the National League was the better league. Bunted, and it is a fair ball, and Hershiser gets tagged for the out as the runner advances, and Hernandez is going to question the plate umpire, John Kibler, about possible interference. And you ask what's the difference. The difference is if it's interference, the runner has to come back to first. But it's a mild beat.
Well, it's a big difference, as you said, Al. here you see Hershiser squaring around. Already saw the double. Nice sacrifice, gets the ball down. Carter, of course, thinks he's interfered with. Hershiser did get out of his way. I'm not sure if it's really an interference call, and that's what the umpire's there for. He obviously didn't think that was the case.
So it goes as a sacrifice as Carter makes the play unassisted, and with 2 down, Baylor is now at second.
The rule is that you cannot impede the fielder trying to pursue the ball.
1-0. But we were talking about the balance right now. The American League, most people who follow baseball would agree right now, is probably overall a better league. And also there seems to be a relative paucity of star players in the National League now after so many great stars through the late 60s and early 70s.
Well, that may be true. Of course, San Diego has a team that's kind of sprinkled with stars, guys that have a lot of ability. But I just think the nature of the game, with a lot of more artificial fields, you just have to go to guys that can really run, have maybe not as good a hands as if they're infielders, but stronger arms. There's more emphasis on speed over there.
Liner right to Hernandez, and Sachs is gone here in the 4th inning. No runs, 1 hit, 1 left. We've played 4. Dodgers lead the Mets 2-0. And we'll be back in Los Angeles after this message and news headlines from our local station. Michaels and Power at Dodger Stadium. Want to plug your book?
No, doesn't need plugging. I would like to say hello to my father, who's having a birthday in Scottsdale, Arizona. Hello, Max. Hope you're watching. If you're not, send the heck with you.
Too cheap to make the long distance.
Exactly. Very frugal sort here.
All right. How is the book doing, by the way? You've got a new book coming out.
Just came out. Exercise. Jim Palmer's Way to Fitness. You'll be getting a copy because you need it.
All about sit-ups and the rest, huh?
Well, and diet and everything. Grooming. There's a lot of chapters in there.
Are there words in there or just pictures?
Well, in spite of what Elise Backus said, there are words.
5th inning, 2-0 Dodgers. Outside. 1-0 the count on Danny Heap. Oral Hershiser delivers, and it's grounded to the right side, and Sachs has to throw it to Hershiser with Brock coming off the bag for the out. So it goes in the books 4-1. Again, the Mets have hit only 1 ball in the air tonight, as Hershiser has been keeping it down. As usual, only Foster has hit it in the air, and he popped out in the 2nd inning.
Well, Ron Peronowski, the Dodgers pitching coach, talked about his excellent sinker to go along with a changeup that he throws occasionally and a great curveball. He said the bottom drops out. Well, when the bottom drops out, the ball goes down, and all you do is hit the top half of the ball. And the result, of course, is a lot of grounders, which we've seen tonight.
The switch inning, Howard Johnson singled in the 3rd inning. To right field, got it near the handle. So Landro misread it initially, but has plenty of time to come in and make the play.
Well, the thing that impresses me about Oral Hershiser, who you see right here, is that not only does he have the great curveball and the great fastballs, that, as he said earlier in that interview, he's been able to get the ball where he wants to. Even when he gets behind, he's making pretty good pitches. Therefore, you don't get a lot of the wood on the bat, and he's staying pretty much on the corners.
2 out in a game that's becoming typical in the National League this year. Low scoring. This was the ball hit by Santana before. And again, the Mets didn't argue, but it was fouled by how much? An inch? And that would have been a double. As it turned out, he subsequently hit into a double play. That's the closest the Mets have come to a rally, even though they had 2 men on in the 4th inning on a couple of walks.
It would have set up a 2nd and 3rd situation with nobody out.
Check swing, they appeal, get the call at first for a strike, and the count is 1-2. First base umpire Costello. So 1 ball and 2 strikes with 2 out and the bases empty in the 5th inning, and the Dodgers on top 2-0.
When you talk about an excellent curveball, what makes a good curveball a good curveball? Dwight Gooden has one. Hershiser has one. It comes up looking like a fastball with really tight spin, and all of a sudden, it breaks.
1 hopper to 3rd. Baylor throws him out, and Hershiser has set down 5 in a row. At the end of 4.5, still 2-0 L.A. Where there is smoke, of course, there is fire, and there is some smoke from the backside of Chavez Ravine out beyond the hill, beyond left field. Not that uncommon a sight. Not that it happens with great frequency, but I think many of you might recall the All-Star game in 1980 when they had a fire up on the hill here during the game. Quickly extinguished. As Ken Landreau leads off in the bottom of the 5th inning, posing no threat right now to the ballpark on the backside of the hill. 0-1 account on Landreau. In the air to right center field. Heath gets a late start and has to short hop, and it's a base hit. Heath is looking into the sun, and that's one of the reasons he got a late start on the ball.
R.J. Reynolds.
Just a little changeup, kind of out in front of it, hits it off the end of the bat. And as you said, Heath doesn't see the ball very well, and it's kind of hard to catch something you can't see. A lot of balls, if you take that one step backward or that one step forward, you just don't catch up with them, and that's the classic example there.
R.J. Reynolds doubled, grounded out, batting .281. 2 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers, no runs, 2 hits for the Mets, and Reynolds is around a bunt it takes inside. So Lasorda figuring Hershiser looks so good, he's got a 2-0 lead. He'd play for one more, and Tommy's thinking probably is that would certainly be enough.
Well, it has been most of the time.
Dodgers had their biggest offensive output of the season yesterday when they scored 8 runs and had to hold on to win 8-7. Runner goes on the hit and run, and it's fouled into the Mets dugout.
8 runs on 12 singles. Squeeze play.
As Lasorda said, here we go out and get 8 runs, and we should have a laugher. They were fighting for their lives at the very end as the Expos ended the game with runners at second and third.
5 hits off Tom Niedenker, who hung on to get the... Bobby Castillo got the win, but he, I suppose, got the save, even though it was kind of a tainted one.
Reynolds lays down a good bunt. Lynch will field, throw to Hernandez. Reynolds gets the sacrifice, and Landreau goes to scoring position with Guerrero, who has singled and doubled coming up. Reynolds coming off a little gingerly here.
Well, it makes an excellent bunt. Ed Lynch has to go a long way to make the play. Looks like if he's running up to full capability, he has a great chance of beating this out, but is easily thrown out at first, and you can kind of see R.J. Reynolds gingerly running down the first baseline.
So Landreau is at second base with 1 out, and Pedro Guerrero, who has singled and doubled. Still, Pedro, with men in scoring position this season, is hitting only 200. High for a ball, 1-0.
Well, 2 hits tonight, and again, as a pitcher, Ed Lynch is on the mound. He knows he's already given up 2 runs. He's pitched to Guerrero twice. He's gotten 2 hits. He's gotten Brock out behind him twice. You hate to put a lot of guys on, but 2 runs may have already beaten you.
Grounded to third. Johnson will hold the runner, and Guerrero is gone for the big second out. And now he has Brock coming up. Pedroza and McWiggin. Pedroza has been a title holder longer than anybody else who is a current champion in any division. The World Featherweight Championship, it's live. It's from London, and you will see it Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports. With all of the Irishmen coming down to root on their man, Barry McWiggin. It should be a very exciting fight. 1-0 the count on Greg Brock. Bottom of the 5th inning. Landreau at second base and 2 down. Rips to right field. Heath racing back on the run and makes the catch. So Heath had one drop in front of him, but then is able to go back and take care of Brock and save a run. As the Dodgers strand Landreau at second here in the 5th.
Well, Danny Heath getting a lot of work. One of the toughest plays to make is the ball over your head. Makes a fine running play. Saves a run.
2-0 Dodgers after 5. Back after this from our local stations. Dodgers lead the Mets by a score of 2-0, and Ed Lynch comes out. Terry Blocker to pinch hit for him. Blocker called up from the minors, and in the bullpen, Tom Gorman is throwing. So he will come in when the Dodgers bat at the bottom of the sixth. Talked about the free agent draft early on. Blocker in 1981 was the Mets' first pick, and he was the 4th pick in the country overall. The year before, 1980, was the year that Strawberry was the #1 pick in the country. So here's Blocker 4 years after the draft, slipping it back to Hershiser and gone on 1 pitch. 1 down in the 6th inning, and Mookie Wilson is the batter. He has struck out and walked. Got a pretty good little blaze going right now back to left field. A couple of helicopters circling the area. Sometimes they do a little aerial water bombardment, as you can see, again posing no threat at all to Dodger Stadium beyond the hill.
That's right over the canyon from that house you're going to be purchasing there.
That I was going to buy. Wilson has struck out and walked and takes the strike. 0-1. Wilson talking to himself, and I'm sure he's talking to himself so that Kibler can hear him, on a 92-mile-an-hour fastball.
You notice they change balls every time the ball hits the dirt here because the infield's a different kind of dirt. It used to be all red clay. The mound now and right around the batter's box is, and you see that spot on the ball.
Grounded slowly down to Anderson, and he beats it out, and that infield grass is just so thick that if you hit a ball like that and you have Wilson's speed, on AstroTurf you're out, and on grass you've got a single.
Oh, good and blown away fastball, and he just kind of goes with it to left field. I don't know if the grass is short to help their pitching or to help their infielders because they haven't been fielding very well, but you can see the throw by Dave Anderson, just not in time. Tells you something about Mookie Wilson's speed from the left side. On the ball away, you really get that excellent jump out of the box, and he just beat the throw.
Ball 1 to Backman, 1-0. Wilson at first base, 1 away in the 6th inning. Mookie with 16 steals, leading the club.
And it sets up that situation we talked about. You have a guy at first that can run, you're more apt to throw fastballs.
And he gets the fastball, and it's chopped to the right side. Sacks field, and then can't get the ball out of his glove as he wheels around. Hershiser was there to cover, but it will be an infield single. And so on 2 infield singles, the Mets have runners at first and second. And Keith Hernandez coming up. So with Wilson at second, Backman is now at first, and Hernandez has grounded out on a nice play by Hershiser and walked.
Might have been a wise decision by Steve Sachs not to throw that ball. Of course, Steve had problems with his throwing, seems to have conquered that this season. Tough throw for him to make, going to his left, throwing back, even though, as you said, Hershiser did what he's supposed to do. Got over to first base in case there was a play.
So the Mets trying to cash in with another opportunity here in the 6th, and they have a man who leads the league in game-winning RBIs at the plate. Keith Hernandez, he leads with 7. And he whacks it down the left field line, and that's a fair ball. That will score Wilson. Backman is being waved in by Harrelson, and he will score, and we're tied at 2-2. Singles and an opposite field double.
Well, Bill Robinson, the Met batting coach, talked about Hernandez swinging at bad pitches, getting himself out. Got 3 hits yesterday going down the left field line to left field. There you see the ball just bouncing fair. Talked about luck. Unlucky by about 2 feet if you're Hershiser. Lucky for Hernandez by about 2 feet if you're a Met and you're a Met fan. Pretty good piece of hitting. Pretty good pitch. Back. Really hasn't made a bad pitch this inning. 2 infield hits and a good sinker away, and Hernandez went right with it.
Now Carter lines it into center field, and that's a base hit, and Harrelson will stop Hernandez with Guerrero running the ball back into the infield. So even though Keith was going, on the crack of the bat, and Carter is now being chased back to first as Brock has positioned himself to cut off a potential throw. The Mets have runners at first and third.
Right about then, you see Keith Hernandez stumble, but Ken Harrelson, the third base coach, has told him to get back. Situation with only one out, you don't want to take a chance of having the runner thrown. Excuse me. Kenny Harrelson coaching third when he's somewhere doing a White Sox game. Bud Harrelson, the third base coach, he has to make a decision with only one out, and George Foster, even though he is 0 for 2, you can see there by the graphic, the type of guy that if they're going to score some runs, he has to hit. Would have been close at the plate, though. Guerrero doesn't have a great arm, and the ball wasn't hit that hard.
Foster, who is now 0 for 13 lifetime against Hershiser, comes up with the infield looking for the double play. 1-0 the count. Mets 2, Dodgers 2. We're in the 6th inning. The Dodgers defensive positioning with Sachs over toward the middle of second. Big hole on the right side for Foster, but he rarely goes there. And he grounds this one down at short. Anderson to Sachs for one. The first, double play, and it's the third pulled off by the Dodgers. And again, a sinker ball pitcher will get out of a lot of trouble with DP. 3 times tonight, Hershiser has benefited. So here in the 6th, the Mets tie it.
Gary Carter, knowing that Foster can't run that well, tries to impede Steve Sachs. Excellent throw by Sachs, completes a double play to get Hershiser out of the inning.
We're tied 2-2 in the middle of the 6th. This is the reaction of Keith Hernandez as George Foster hits into that double play. Keith had been held by Harrelson at third on a base hit on which he might have scored. Figuring in Harrelson's thinking was only one out and Foster coming up. And then so much for that theory. Meanwhile, Tom Gorman had been up in the bullpen, and when the Mets tied the game, they got McDowell up, and Roger, who has become their big man out of the pen from the right side. The rookie comes in to pitch now in the bottom of the 6th inning, and what a job he has done with a sinker. The man who had surgery last year and missed almost the entire season. He would have been a Double-A Jackson in the Southern League, has come up, and what a find he has been for the Mets this year.
Well, Davey Johnson talked about the difference between last year's Met team and this year's. That would be the maturity of the young pitchers, but I don't think he expected Roger McDowell to come along and pitch as well as he did, but he said every time he saw him in spring training, he just kept impressing him. Great sinker, and you'll see the ball run, and it'll dip. In fact, the ball, he doesn't have the same velocity that Orel Hershiser has, but the ball may even sink more, and that's saying something.
They scored off him the other night in San Diego to snap a string of 23 consecutive scoreless innings, and actually the run came with Orozco on the mound, even though the base runner got there with McDowell pitching, so the run was charged to Rogers. And down goes Sosa. Gets fooled. He's gone on 3 pitches, and there's one away here in the 6th inning with Baylor coming up.
As far as about the ball running and sinking, the ball starts out inside, catches the inside corner. Scotia thinks it's a ball inside. The ball runs right back over the plate.
Odd little twist here. Orel Hershiser went to Bowling Green University in Ohio, and his last year there was 79, and then McDowell went to Bowling Green in 1980. So 2 pitchers, similar in the sense both throw the wicked sinker. Both good young pitchers and both out of Bowling Green.
You see him just trying to establish that outside corner. I was talking to him, I said, you kind of had a lackluster 83 season. He said the doctors went in there when they did do that elbow surgery. They didn't do it arthroscopically. They did the conventional cutting and found 12 little chips. It was causing him a lot of, not really much pain when he pitched, but the day after.
Grounded and not able to backhand it is Johnson as Baylor takes a wide turn and then holds. So Johnson, who has been making most of those plays this season, can't do it here.
Well, you can see the depth that Howard Johnson's playing because of Bobby Baylor's bunting ability. You play even in front of the bag. He tries to go to his right and backhand the play, or the ball, excuse me, and just can't make the play.
Baylor at first, and in the deal in which Baylor came, Sid Fernandez went to the Mets and is now in the rotation. Dodgers were very high, or at least they made it seem as if they were extremely high on Fernandez. But when you let him get away for the utility player, you wonder. Go to first base.
Well, you saw the picture of Sid Fernandez. As I said earlier, he had a horrendous spring training. He was trying to work on his breaking ball, and even though he's a fastball pitcher and couldn't get either of them over. But the difference between this year and last year is that he's lost 30 pounds, went down to the minor leagues, established his fastball, and has come back and pitched great for him.
Sid Fernandez out of Hawaii.
About 22 years of age, so has a bright future as long as his arm holds up.
Well, he was a phenom at about the same time in the minor leagues that Valenzuela came onto the scene with a big splash. And so they talked about the two of them simultaneously. 1-0 the count. But it just never panned out for Sid here.
Well, again, to have a good ball club, you have to have some bench strength. And I think when the Dodgers think about a guy like Bobby Baylor, he can play almost any infield position. And he's a good outfielder. Doesn't strike out, can spray the ball around, can hit and run, can bunt. Before he had arthroscopic knee surgery last year, could steal a base for you. So he's a multi-purpose player on a team that they thought was going to be set.
1-1 now the count on Anderson.
I've seen Roger McDowell, and again, we're going to see a great example of watch this ball sink. And when you get the low strike, which you do in the National League, you're going to be very effective. I've never seen the man throw a breaking ball yet. I told him that today. He said, oh, yeah, I've thrown a couple. But with that kind of sinker, you really don't need much of a breaking ball.
Fouled away. 1 ball, 2 strikes to count on Anderson. Entire field now encased in shadow. Lights beginning to take effect, making it somewhat easier for the hitters as you look around. Our producer Chuck Howard, director Chuck Forty, and the gang all here for our season debut of Monday Night Baseball as Anderson fouls it away. Next week, Toronto and the Yankees, and the Cubs and Montreal. As we check out other scores, Cardinals and Houston in a game in which Nolan Ryan was the starting pitcher. 4-0, the Cardinals leading in the 4th inning.
John Tudor, 1-7, hasn't really pitched that poorly, but again, a victim of non-support. Trying to get a second win. Probably very happy to have those 4 runs.
Drilled foul, hooking, back out of play. Still 1 ball and 2 strikes. So Baylor at first base. And still 1-2 on Anderson. Fouled away. That man in the Panama hat, of course, if you've seen baseball from Dodger Stadium, you know who it is with the speed gun in that dugout box area is Mike Brito, Dodgers scout. Fernando Valenzuela, confidant, used to drive Fernando to the ballpark. And he's out there with that speed gun just about every night. As McDowell speeds one by Dave Anderson, 2 down.
Once again, I saw the first breaking ball on the previous pitch, a slider, and here you see the good sinker. You think it's going to be a strike? Doesn't end up that way.
2 down, and Hershiser is the batter. Well, what's one of the theories in the National League this year? The averages are down because a lot of guys are throwing the split-fingered pitch. And even though this isn't the split-fingered variety, it serves basically the same purpose.
Well, it does, except it's probably a little more difficult to throw a good sinker than it is a split-fingered fastball. The reason everybody's going to a split-fingered fastball is because it's so easy to throw. You just kind of spread your fingers. Instead of holding your fingers together on the ball, you kind of split them and put your thumb right underneath the ball, and if you throw it from your normal delivery, and the ball will drop.
Hershiser goes down on strikes on 3 pitches, and so McDowell strikes out the side. No runs, a hit. They strand Baylor on to the 7th with the Dodgers and Mets tied 2-2.
This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by the Stroh Brewery Company, brewers of Stroh's, Old Milwaukee, and other fine beers.
Update you, California leading in the West and leading Baltimore 5-1. Seattle now leading Detroit 7-5 in the 6th inning. Boston has the lead at Fenway over Cleveland, and the Yankees playing extremely well under Billy Martin in New York lead 4-0. Texas 2, Chicago 0 in the 4th, and Milwaukee 3, Kansas City 1. One National League final, Montreal this afternoon in 15 beat San Francisco 4-2. Here, 2-2, 7th inning, and Danny Heap 0 for 2. Grounded into a double play and grounded out, comes up hitting 270. Ball 1 from Hershiser.
In talking to Davey Johnson, the manager of the Mets, this is a perfect illustration. He would prefer to have a guy like Danny Heap, a veteran player that's been around a couple of years ago in '83. And there you see Davey Johnson, the manager of the Mets. Good. Heap came off the bench in '83 at 4 home runs. He'd rather have him on the bench so he can use him late in the ball game and have Strawberry out there on a regular basis. Now he's got a platoon at third base with Knight and Howard Johnson, in right field with John Christensen and Danny Heap, who we see here.
3-0 the count. Ray Knight on the bench today, by the way, but there's a man who became a little wealthier yesterday. He's married to Nancy Lopez, and despite a 2-stroke penalty the other day, she won the LPGA Open.
There was a spring to his step when he came into the locker room. In fact, Davey Johnson, who's a pretty good golfer, said there's no way that Nancy Lopez could beat me. He got her back on the championship tees, and she still won.
Heath is on. So Danny draws a walk, and that's 3 walks given up by Hershiser. I wonder if Knight's going to get an allowance raise this week.
Well, come out on the West Coast to win 4 out of 5 games, so the Mets are rolling, and turn on the tube and see your wife making all kinds of birdie putts. Danny Heap hitting 2-run home runs. Carter hitting 2-run home runs. What a day. What a Sunday.
Your team's in first place. But you're still on the bench because this man's in there tonight. Howard Johnson. Single to center, fly to right. Batting 160. And up there to bunt, bunting foul with Baylor and Brock both charging in.
There's, I think, something important to note that the Mets, of course, were in first place most of last summer, and the Cubs made a great run, had a 2-game lead in the playoffs, only to lose the last 3 ball games. It's going to be a good race, and as I said in the pregame show, when you put Montreal with their good young pitching and some good speed, and Bob Rogers doing a good job up there, along with St. Louis, it's going to be a good divisional race. Probably better than most people expected. Excuse me. No?
2 strikes on Johnson as he can't get this one down.
Well, it looks like he's bunting for a base hit. And then decides the ball is the ball. But it's called a strike. 0-2.
Now Baylor backing up and playing even with a bag at third with 2 strikes. Down low. Oh, it killed the Mets last year, Jim. It was that 2-week stretch in the middle of the summer when they lost, as I recall, 7 out of 8 to the Cubs after winning the first game of the series. Cubs wiped them out 7 straight. And as we said before, those 2 teams have yet to meet this season, but upcoming are home-and-home series in the middle of the month.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Rick Sutcliffe, of course, out with a torn hamstring.
The USFL, Birmingham trying to stay in first, but trailing Houston 21-20 tonight in the 3rd. Check swing. Did he They come around, they appeal, and it's strike 3 from the third base umpire. Bruce Fleming making the call. And it did look like Johnson came around.
Well, you can judge for yourself if the bat goes out in front of home plate. It's a strike. See the good low curveball.
Oh, yeah.
Looks to me that it was way out in front of home plate. Mike Scotia, we talked about his ability earlier in the first inning, early in the game, about blocking pitches. With a guy like Hershiser that has that biting curveball, get a lot of work out as a catcher going in the dirt and blocking balls. Did a nice job there.
What you call him, a goalie? I like that phrase. Well, because Hershiser was a hockey player. He used to play for the Philadelphia Flyers Junior A team. So it's an appropriate description here on a pitch out, and the count is 1-0. That man has a pretty good curve, and
he's got a pretty good
fastball, and you name it.
And great location.
White couldn't.
The writer asked me today, can you call him great? I said, well, I'll tell you what, everything he's done has been great. I guess
runner goes, not much of a jump to throw down to second, and they nail him. Danny Heath looked like he was starting out a quicksand, and Sosha almost double clutched it as well and still got him.
Well, to throw it easily in time, Steve Stacks, all he has to do is put the glove down. Most likely a hit and run, or a run and hit. And if you're Danny Heath, you're anticipating Santana to make contact, which he didn't do. Missed the curveball.
And doesn't make contact here, and the count is 1-2. I love what Vida Blue said when somebody asked him the other day about Dwight Gooden. He summed it up with one word: bona fide. Grounded to third. Nice play by Baylor, and he throws him out to retire the side. So the Mets get the leadoff man on, but nothing doing. It's still 2-2 as the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 7th.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Al Michaels and Jim Palmer with you as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning. 2-2 tie. Steve Sachs, Ken Landreau, and R.J. Reynolds against the reliever Roger McDowell. Strike the Sachs, and the count is 0-1. Steve has grounded out, walked, lined out, batting .240. No homers and 5 runs batted in. 1-1.
How about this for a theory on why he is happy that he's starting out slowly? Last year he got off to a great start. He said it was very nerve-wracking to try to hit 300. So this year he's going to start off a little bit more slowly and come up instead of going down.
Well, it's Steve's really, he's battled. He's had some problems. He came up in '82 and eventually took over Davey Lopes' job. And then 2 years ago, he had that mysterious throwing problem. He could not make the routine throw to first base. And he swings late here, and down he goes. So that sinker proving too much for Sachs, and all 4 outs for McDowell have come on strikeouts and all on the sinker.
Well, once again, I sound like a broken record. You just see the sinker diving. And again, if you're Steve Sachs, you think the ball is going to stay up. You just can't believe the ball is going to sink that much, and it does.
So Sachs, who wants to be remembered to his niece celebrating a birthday in Sacramento today, is out number 1 here in the bottom of the 7th inning, and Ken Landreau is the batter. Strike. 0-1. McDowell's bringing it up there with dispatch as well, as the gun is clocking him in the low 90s. Not on that last pitch, but we're down to a 91-92.
Well, he did throw a second breaking ball. You kind of wonder why you'd even throw a breaking ball when you have a sinker that's that outstanding. And then he went back to the sinker.
1-2 in the first inning. Guerrero drove in Reynolds, and then in the second inning, Hershiser doubled over Foster's head. It stayed 2-0 L.A. until the 6th, when Wilson and Backman got aboard on infield singles, and Hernandez poked one down the line and left to drive in 2. And right now we're in the bottom of the 7th inning with 1 out and the bases empty, and the Dodgers and the Mets tie 2-2.
Kind of a predictable type of game. Two excellent hitting clubs, or excuse me, pitching clubs, and struggling for runs, and that's been the case all night.
Easy grounder to Wally Backman. 2 away. As we said before, almost a typical National League game. The National League batting average composites this season at this point 242, which is exceptionally low. Frame of reference last year 255. There's Jesse Orozco throwing in the Mets bullpen with McDowell due to lead off when New York bats in the top of the 8th. Reynolds doubled, grounded out, and sacrificed. One and oh. Tommy Lasorda with Monty Basco in the background. Dodgers, in their 28 years in L.A., have had only 2 managers. Walter Austin up through 76. And Sir Thomas. You walk in, of course, to Lasorda's office, and it's adorned with hundreds of photos. In Tommy's office, he has a Sinatra wall. He has a Rickles wall. Of course, the way the Dodgers have been playing this year, what he really needs is a Whaling wall.
Are you on his wall?
2-1. Yeah, but the picture is turned around. You're on the wall, right underneath the bullseye. 2-2 the count.
Yeah, I told him I was going to send him an exercise book after he gave me a copy of The Artful Dodger. I started reading it last night, fell immediately to sleep. And what he said is you got to work hard, get an education. That's what worked for him. Not that well this year, but...
Reynolds has gone on strikes, and so in 2 innings, McDowell has struck out 5. Hello, Roger. On to the 8th, the 2-2 tie. Dodgers make a change at second base. Mariano Duncan, who is the 2nd youngest player in the National League, comes in defensively, and Clint Hurdle comes up to bat for McDowell in the top of the 8th, and the game tied 2-2. So Sachs is out, Duncan is in, and McDowell is out, which is a blessing for the Dodgers as he struck out 5 in 2 innings. And Hurdle, the one-time Kansas City phenom and backup catcher for the Mets, hits a grounder down to Duncan. Throws him out. 1 away. Hurdle came up, as you'll recall, Jim, as an outfielder, first baseman, and has wound up as a catcher.
Well, again, another case of a lot of expectations. Good young-looking ball player, but didn't really have a lot of power. Wasn't a great outfielder, even though he has hit over 20 home runs his last couple of years in the minor leagues. Really doesn't have that quick a bat. And became a catcher. Really found out that he couldn't be an outfielder and wasn't going to get to the major leagues, and tried to catch, and here he is back in the big leagues, kind of as a 2nd or 3rd catcher.
Mookie Wilson hits it in the air to right field, and Ken Landreau is right there. Very quickly, 2 down here in the 8th inning. Hershiser tonight has given up 6 hits, and 4 of them came consecutively in the 6th inning. He's been spotty with his control, walking 3. He has struck out 3.
Well, in that inning, Al, he made 3 pretty good pitches, 2 infield hits, and a looper by Hernandez, and then made a bad pitch. Really, 1 out of the 4 hits was a bad pitch, so he's been in command. He's had good stuff all night. 3 walks is more than he'd like to give up. But again, as most pitchers try to do, what you want to do is go out there and keep your club in the ball game, and he's done that.
1-1. Hershiser has not been beaten since last season. He's 5-0 this year.
Well, he's had 30 major league starts, and 6 of them have been shutouts, so you can kind of get an idea of what kind of quality pitching he's done.
Won his last 3 decisions last season, and his last loss was last September the 9th, so he's won 8 in a row. and 2 strikes to count. Lifted in the air to right center field. And it's Guerrero and Landreau getting together, and Pedro making the catch to retire the side. After 7.5, still tied 2-2 back in Los Angeles after this message and news headlines from our local stations. Jesse Orozco, and there's been some question about his elbow because he went a week and a half without pitching and then came out of the bullpen finally on Saturday night to get the final 2 outs of a victory at San Diego. So Orozco, for the second time in almost 2 weeks, comes in to pitch tonight, and he's a very key man, of course, for the Mets, as he proved last year. California in the 8th leads Baltimore. Seattle leading the Tigers in the 7th. Boston trying to hold on at Fenway, and the Yankees have stretched their lead against the A's. Chicago and Texas are tied in the 6th, and Milwaukee and Kansas City a rain delay in the 4th with Milwaukee leading. Cardinals lead Houston 4-0 in the 4th. And the Phillies in San Diego are underway with no score in the 2nd inning. Montreal beat the Giants 4-2 in 15 innings this afternoon. Here, 2-2, bottom of the 8th, Pedro Guerrero, Greg Brock, Mike Scioscia against Jesse Orozco. What a job by McDowell. They 7 men gave up 1 single, no walks, struck out 5.
Well, it gives manager Davey Johnson a lot of flexibility. You can get him to a situation where he can use Jesse Orozco. You talked about his arm, overpowering fastball, great slider, 31 saves last year to go along with a 10-6 record. He didn't use him really that 10-day period because he said he didn't match up against the other teams, but I think maybe he wasn't really telling us the truth.
When you don't use your ace reliever for 10 days, you aren't telling the truth. At least you got to get him in some work. There's McDowell. Still with the freshness of a rookie, a guy who does his job and doesn't go back to the clubhouse. He's still on the bench to await the outcome of the game.
Well, Sparky Anderson said to the Earl Weavers at the time of the sorties, they can't go out there and pitch and run and hit. And these guys, and there you saw an excellent 2-0 fastball right on the outside corner. You need guys that are going to go out there and do the job for you. And you can bring up a young kid like Roger McDowell, and he can pitch like he did tonight. It's got to give you a pretty good feeling, a pretty confident feeling.
And Johnson was given another good feeling yesterday as a change misses low, and Doug Sisk pitched 4 innings at San Diego. Sisk has had problems to the extent that he was farmed out earlier this year and came back, and now if Sisk can come around again with Sisk and Orozco and McDowell, they're going to be devastating out of the bullpen. Guerrero hits a fly ball to center field. And it's Mookie Wilson taking care of Pedro for out number 1. Orozco averaging almost a strikeout per inning, 24 Ks in 24 2/3. Goes to work now on Greg Brock.
Well, he has that good fastball, and you can get behind a guy like Guerrero, who's a good fastball hitter. And when you have that confidence that comes with good stuff, you can go right after him, and he did, and he popped it up to center field.
1-0 on Brock. Second on the club in homers is Greg with 6. Mike Marshall out of the lineup tonight because of a shoulder injury. Leads the Dodgers in home runs with 8. Dodgers are hitting home runs this season, but most of them with the bases empty. Strike, and the count is 1-1. Dodgers always seem to be at or near the top of the league when it comes to hitting home runs, but they have not been coming at propitious times this year. Brock fouling it at the plate.
Well, when your leading hitter is hitting 277, in spite of what Tommy Lasorda said about not hitting in clutch situations, they just aren't getting a lot of runners on. And also, when you struggle and you're not scoring runs, you maybe steal and hit and run a little bit more, which again puts you in situations where you maybe take some guys off the bases.
Lowest team batting average is right there from the bottom up. Giants at 217, and then the Mets, and then the Dodgers, but it just shows you that the Mets are doing it when they have to. And the pitching has been superb. Still a ball and 2 strikes.
Of course, Al, if you look at that list of teams, that are struggling with a bat, the one that looks like it's going to come around and hit the most would be the Cubs, 238 in a hitter's ballpark.
Yeah. Even with everybody in a slump, it's hard to believe they're down that low playing half your games in Wrigley.
Of course, I suppose you could get a year where the wind does blow in, and when anytime you see a 2-1 or 1-0 score in Wrigley Field, you know the wind was blowing.
Absolutely. Popped up in foul territory. Carter had to shove the plate umpire out of the way as Kibler was momentarily in his path, and there are 2 down. And the 2 can enjoy a smile right here. Kibler, big man, tough for him to vacate.
Well, also, he doesn't know where the ball is either. Carter does. Hi, Mr. Kibler. Yeah, thank you. And then he goes and gets the ball. A lot of foul territory right behind home plate here. But you can see Gary Carter not taking his eyes off the ball, has time to get to it. And with authority, makes the catch.
Here's Socha. We were discussing the Dodger homers this year. They've hit 34, and 27 of them have come with the bases empty.
Only 2 3-run home runs, both by Greg Brock, who just popped up. Now, I have a theory. I know that when I get a couple of guys on, you just make better pitches, or at least you try to. Where a lot of guys will be good hitters until you get runners in scoring position, and then the pitchers bear down. It makes it a little bit more difficult to get those hits.
2 balls and no strikes to count. And that's ripped into center for a base hit. And so the lead run is at first base with 2 away here in the 8th inning. And Bob Baylor is coming up.
And there's a prime example. You get behind a guy like Mike Scotia, who has 2 home runs this year, but not a home run hitter. Roscoe took some off his fastball to throw him a strike because he didn't want to walk him. Better pitch to hit. And when you have a guy like Bobby Baylor, even though he's not a home run hitter, the type of guy you want to pitch to. Most likely going to keep the ball in the ballpark.
Baylor has grounded out and singled twice. He is 2 for 3. Comes up batting .244. If you're thinking about Baylor hitting one out, well, you might as well forget it. He's hit 1 home run in the last 4 years. Strike. 0-1. On deck. Socha at first base. Not much speed.
Get an idea of how intense Bobby Baylor can be when he plays. I was pitching in spring training last year. I had the Dodgers down 12-0. He's playing shortstop, dives for a ball and dislocates his shoulder.
Squib down to Santana, who doesn't come up with a ball. Big break for the Dodgers. And Baylor pulled a hamstring, or at least strained it, as he went down the line. Manny Mota comes over to check it out, and Bill Bueller will also lend some assistance to the Dodger trainer as Baylor winds up reaching on the game's first error. An error on Santana, and the Dodgers will have runners at first and second, and Anderson due to come up.
Well, you're not going to see a swing with much authority. A good slider low and in. He may have pulled it right here or right there when he stumbled. I don't think Santana could have made the play. The slow grass, he knows he has to hurry. Might have been able to throw him out with a pulled hamstring, but under normal situations, there's no way that Bobby Baylor doesn't beat that ball out.
Tommy Lasorda comes out to take a peek. And, of course, for the Dodgers, not playing particularly well and coming off a sub-500 season last year. A little bit of the bloom is off the rose, as it would be with any manager, and Lasorda hears his share of catcalls. Tommy would like to keep Baylor in the game if he can. He's already taken sacks out. He has Marshall hurt. He certainly can't send Yeager into pinch run, or doesn't want to at this point. But he may not have a choice.
I think he's mimicking Bill Russell.
And that's who it will be. So Russell will come out. And in fact, Russell's going to go to second base to run for Socha. And I think, is it Sid Bream who will come out? Or maybe the pitcher, Bobby Castillo, and that's who it will be. It's Bobby Castillo who comes out to pinch run at first. Castillo, who was the starting and winning pitcher yesterday against Montreal, is the runner at first. Probably ties a record for most simultaneous pinch runners in a game, you would assume.
37, Bobby Castillo.
So he's got Russell now running at second and Castillo running at first.
Number 18, Bill Russell.
And what he'll do is probably leave Russell in the game. Two out and two on. Ball one. Yeager will come in to catch for the Dodgers in the top of the ninth inning, and then Russell should stay in the game. Bill is at second. Castillo at first. He's got a lot of ways to go. I'm hesitating as to where he's going to put Russell. He still has Anderson in. He could move Anderson to third. He could move Duncan over to short, send Anderson to second. He could bring Guerrero into play third and put Russell in center if he wanted. We'll have to wait and see. Or he could have Billy play third. Two balls, no strikes to count. And that's ball three, and they appeal and don't get the call at first base from Stello. 3-0. Hershiser is on deck. The Dodgers have Marshall on the bench. Now, Marshall can hit, but he can't throw with a shoulder problem. He is the most likely pinch hitter if Anderson draws a walk here. And it's a strike. And if it's not Marshall, it would tell you that Mike can't even hit. We know he's having problems throwing. Otherwise, he'd be in the lineup tonight. Three balls, one strike to count, with Russell at second and Castillo at first. Three and two. So now the runners will be going.
Once again, you saw that good fastball. 3-1 went right after him. Of course, you can do that when you're throwing around 91 miles per hour. What's interesting is the way Carter looks at Dave Anderson. You can see he'll flash the sign, and then he'll look up at the batter, Dave Anderson, to kind of see if he's looking or if he's there. You see him looking right now. And sits away.
And the pitch, ball four. So Anderson, the number 8 hitter, draws his second walk. And it will be Mike Marshall to come out of the dugout to bat for Orel Hershiser. Inning started innocently enough with a fly ball and a pop foul for 2 outs. But then the single, the error, and the walk, and Mike Marshall, who leads the club in homers, comes up.
Mike Marshall.
Oh, Mike Marshall, big, strong right-handed hitter. Hit 257, 21 home runs, and 65 RBIs last year. But has a tendency to strike out. Cut it down in strikeouts. Struck out over 100 times 2 years ago, only 93 times last year. You want to get him out. You want to come up and in on him. And you get the ball out over the plate.
We talked about his shoulder problem, Jim. I asked Lasorda, they sent Marshall up yesterday in an obvious intentional walk situation. And Tommy said one of the reasons he did it was that Mike really couldn't swing the bat, and Lasorda was shocked when the Expos pitched to him, a strike. And that's a tip-off right there that he's having trouble hitting as well as throwing.
Well, of course, Montreal, who they were playing yesterday, they've had a lot of luck with him just pitching him inside. In fact, they've had a couple situations where he's been hit and actually went out to the mound. The place to go, and you can see Carter right there. He's up and in.
Popped up. Shallow right field. It's Backman drifting out, and Heath coming in and calling, and that's that for the Dodgers in the 8th inning. As they leave the bases loaded. And on to the 9th we go, Ty. 2-2 back after this from our local station. We want to note the passing today of Carl Lindemann, a good friend of many of us in this business. Spent a number of years at NBC Sports, greatly involved in baseball coverage there and other events through the years, and then on to CBS Sports, where he was vice president and assistant to the president of CBS Sports. Carl Lindemann dying at the age of 62. And to the family of Carl, I know from many of us here at ABC Sports, our deepest sympathy. A good, good man. Ken Howell comes in to pitch for the Dodgers as we go to the 9th inning. And the Dodgers make a lot of changes because of the pinch running and pinch hitting situation. Steve Yeager comes in to do the catching. So a brand new battery, and Bill Russell stays in the game with Keith Hernandez coming up. Russell is now the shortstop, and Dave Anderson goes to third. Howell, in 30 innings, has struck out 40, but he's had control trouble. He's walked 18 after last year walking about one man every 10 innings.
9 walks in 51 innings last year. Phenomenal. He's always had a history of being wild. And, of course, only 5 the unintentional walks. 94-mile-per-hour fastball right there. He's got a live arm. Basically a hard slider to go along with it, but only throws that when he gets ahead. He's the type of pitcher that comes right after you. In fact, there's been a lot of speculation. We see the errant throw by Steve Yeager. It doesn't really matter much, but a lot of speculation with Howell pitching as well as he did last year and the Dodgers needing a third baseman. There was talk of trading Tom Niedenfuhr, who's the other short man, to Boston for Wade Boggs. That's been a trade that's been bannered around. Of course, he hasn't been consistent this year, and you can't walk a lot of guys if you're a short man. There you saw the excellent slider. Establish your fastball. He did that and come right back with a good breaking ball.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Boy, he is a big man from Lasorda this year because you've got Niedenfuhr. Then you've got Steve Howe coming back. And if you're wondering how Howe is doing, I guess the best way to sum it up would be okay. Hitting the left field for a base hit. As Hernandez is on. In terms of how he's pitching, I think okay would be applicable. What he's doing with Howe is he's using him from time to time, but he really hasn't brought him into that many key situations with the game on the line.
Again, a very similar pitch to the one that Hernandez hit down left field line for a double. Fastball out over the plate, just punched it into left field.
Carter tonight with a couple of singles comes up batting .248. 6 homers and 24 RBIs. 0-1.
We talked about that open stance. Now, one of the reasons he has that open stance is that he had a lot of problems. You talked about the broken ribs, but he's had a lot of knee problems over the years. And when he does open his stance, it takes a lot of pressure off his knees. Unfortunately, it does kind of put him in a somewhat unorthodox type of stance.
0-2 the count. Boston holds on, beats Cleveland. Oil Can is now 6-4. And 7 complete games for him. One ball, 2 strikes.
Again, you see the 2 strikes, and he goes with a breaking ball, almost handcuffs Steve Yeager. Gives an indication of how his ball is moving.
picked up and playable in foul territory for Greg Brock. Hernandez still at first with one away now. And it'll bring up Foster. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the ninth inning, they go to the top of the order, which is occupied now by Mariano Duncan and Ken Landreau and R.J. Reynolds. Foster hit into a double play to end the Mets rally in the sixth inning. They'd already scored twice and had runners at first and third. And you talk about key plays in the game or key decisions right now. You go back to Bud Harrelson stopping Keith Hernandez from scoring from second on Gary Carter's single. When Hernandez had rounded third and Bud put out the stop sign, figuring Foster was coming up next, and with one out and a man at third, George should be able to bring in. But he hit into a double play. And now the plate umpire, John Kibler, will define the batter's box for Foster.
Well, George probably heard that Ken Howell's throwing 94 miles per hour and figured I might as well get back as far as I can.
George is no stranger to taking a lot of time, making the pitcher wait. And so this is sort of par for the course. Popped up. Shallow left field. Russell. 2 down. Hernandez still at first. And Danny Heath comes up.
One of the breaks you get when you get a leadoff runner with your fourth and fifth hitters coming up. Hernandez gets on, and in most situations you get a leadoff runner on in the ninth inning. You'd bunt him over, put him in scoring position, but with Carter and Foster coming up, you go for the big inning, or I don't know if Gary Carter's ever had to bunt. It takes a lot of pressure off pitcher if you make good pitches, and Hal's been able to do that.
Tremendous jump for Hernandez, who had the base stolen by a mile as he fouls it away. Keith Hernandez was halfway to second as that pitch came to the plate. He's mad right there because he knew he had it stolen. Then he turns around and it's fouled off.
And he says, first I could have scored on that single, and now I had second base stolen. You should go back to that single, and Bobby Valentine, who's now managing the Texas Rangers, known for his aggressiveness. You never know, he might have sent him. Of course, if you're the third base coach and you are Bud Harrelson, you don't have the luxury of maybe knowing that George Foster was 0 for 13 off Laurel Hershiser. So that's what makes third base coach a very important part of a ball club.
1-1 to count.
In retrospect, you have a guy like Hernandez who's not particularly fast, but he knows where the outfielders are playing. He knows how the ball is hit. He certainly felt that he could score on the ball, but as a runner, you have to obey the third base coach. Go back to the playoffs as they did for ABC, where they fired a third base coach, Mike Ferraro.
1980. That was the classic shot of Steinbrenner getting up and throwing his arms up in disgust. And it was, I guess, Willie Randolph got thrown out at the plate. So it's interesting. In a game with 18 players and X number of subs, that the biggest decision of the night was made by the third base coach, at least at the moment. To deep right field, way back, and he has hit it out. Third home run of the season and the second in 2 days. Yesterday, a disputed home run for Danny Heath, which went right down the line, but no doubt about this one. Who have won 6 of their last 7, now lead 4-2.
Well, Kenny Howell may have been worrying about the runner, Hernandez, at first. You throw a low fastball to a low fastball hitter. Funny thing about this game, baseball, last year he only hit 1 home run. In the last 2 days, he's hit 2. Sometimes that's what it takes to win a pennant.
Johnson takes a strike. You saw Darryl Strawberry, one of the first to come over to congratulate him, as he's playing because Strawberry's hurt. He's being platooned with Christensen. And he's been a big man the last couple of days for him. Grounded down to Brock. Over to Howell, but the damage done here in the 9th inning. The single by Hernandez and the 2-out homer by Heath, and we will go to the bottom of the 9th in L.A. with the Mets now leading 4-2. Be with us Saturday live from London, WBA World Featherweight Championship. Eusebio Pedrosa, who's held the title for a long time, longer than any other champion, against Barry McGuigan on ABC's Wide World of Sports. It should be a beauty this Saturday. Mets 4, Dodgers 2. Al Michaels and Jim Palmer in L.A. as we go to the bottom of the 9th inning, and Mariano Duncan comes up for the first time in the game, and he hits it in the air to right center field and deep, but Wilson has great speed, still can't make the catch. It's a ground rule double. Mariano Duncan is still flying around the bases, but now they tell him. And Wilson looked like he was on his way to catching up with it, but it just kept on sailing. So it's a double for Duncan as the Dodgers try to come back here in the bottom of the 9th inning.
You see Mookie Wilson on his horse, thinks he has the ball. We talked there earlier, Al, about Dodgers usually lead the National League in home runs. And the reason is the ball carries very well here. As you said, it looked like Wilson thought he could catch the ball, but it just, you can see it here, it just carries a little bit too far as he goes down and stumbles.
And now Candy Maldonado comes up to hit for Landro in the bottom of the 9th inning as Lasorda opts for the percentages and goes to the right-handed batter.
The kind of ball that if it stays in the ballpark with Wilson falling down has a chance to definitely be a triple, maybe even an inside the Parker home run, even though with a 2-run deficit you almost have to be sure before you send a guy.
Candy Maldonado looks at his strike. Well, he's really had a tough time, hitting 162. And he's been mired in a hellacious slump.
Well, this is one of the guys that Tommy Lasorda talked about. He was talking about before the game that you have a tendency when you have players that play at Albuquerque where the air is rarefied that can start uppercutting on the ball and trying to hit that fly ball to take advantage of the short porch and the way the ball carries.
In the air to right center field, but very playable for Wilson, and he'll handle this one, and Duncan will tag at second and advance 90 feet. Maldonado still mired in that slump. He comes the first out in the bottom of the 9th inning, and it brings up the left fielder R.J. Reynolds.
Pretty good pitch to hit. It was kind of a hanging slider up in the strike zone, but he just got under it.
R.J. Reynolds scored the first Dodger run in the first inning. The Dodgers scoring single runs in the first and second, and led 2-0 through 5. The Mets getting 2 in the 6th, and then Heath's home run in the 9th, making it 4-2. That's where we stand right now. Infield back, of course, with a 2-run lead and 1 out. Want to know the count. Guerrero next. Line to right, over the head of Heath, and he can't make the catch, and that's a ground rule double. So Orozco is not tricking him here in the bottom of the 9th inning. Tying run, Reynolds at second base, and he wants to talk to Joey Amalfitano.
Here you see Danny Heath trying to get back as quickly as he can, and the ball just over his glove. Once again, another ball that could have gone for a triple if it does not bounce into the stands. Because I think what R.J. Reynolds is talking to Joe Amalfitano about is that we saw him limp earlier in the game. His leg may still be bothering him.
But the Dodgers are very thin on the bench right now. And Reynolds stays in with the tying run at second base and 1 out, and Guerrero 2 for 4.
is Brock. Reynolds is second. 1 out of the 9th.
Well, if you're the Dodgers, you have the guy you want up there. Good average hitter. Awesome power when he makes contact. And if you're the Mets, you got your ace on the hill.
1-1. So at this point, if Johnson had his brothers, I think he might like to have McDowell on the hill.
Well, Sis pitched the 4 innings, or I would think they would have him up in the bullpen.
Sis went 4 yesterday. McDowell pitched 2 tonight. And Orozco's trying to save it. And it's a struggle. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. In the bullpen, they're back down to Joe Sambito, who is up, trying to battle back from injuries. Change is grounded toward the middle, and nobody's there. And Reynolds gingerly comes around third and scores. And that's the precise type of hit the Dodgers needed to score Reynolds, because you can tell he's hurting. A bouncer slowed down by the grass and rolling into center field, and the game is tied.
Well, Jesse Orozco chooses to go with his 3rd pitch. Looks like a little bit of a changeup away. Guerrero just banks it up the middle. All the way to Mookie Wilson in center field, who has no chance to throw out Reynolds at the plate.
Winning run now at first. And Brock is the batter. He is hitless tonight, batting .229. 1-0. There's no way Reynolds could have scored on a sharp signal. Believe me, as we watch him go around the bases, he's hurting. Grounded toward the hole, and Backman scoops it up, throws him out. Good play. Winning run is now at second, but he gets a big out.
What makes this a tough play is that Backman knows he wants to get his glove on the ball and almost loses his balance. Has to knock the ball down. As you see, going as far as he can to his left. The spin and the throw. Excellent play to set up 2 outs. Of course, Guerrero does move into scoring position at second base for Russell.
Now Dave Johnson has a choice. Does he want to pitch to Russell, or does he want to pitch to Yeager? He's got first base open. Both came into the game in the last inning.
Well, Yeager's 5 for 40, and Russell's hitting .266.
And Russell's hitting .400 with men in scoring position. And Johnson has the computer and has to know that. Strike. 0-1.
But even though you do have those computer readouts, I remember Earl Weaver used to have the same things. Many times I saw him sprint into his office in the 7th and 8th innings because you don't take him out on the bench with you. Unless you have them handy, he has no way of knowing.
Guerrero is at second. The winning run, 0-1 the count. A 4-4 tie as each team has scored twice here in the 9th inning. Breaking pitch hit foul, and it's 0-2.
I think a more important computer readout would illustrate how Bill Russell hits Jesse Orozco, because Orozco, if this inning is any indication, is not on the top of his game. He's gotten his sliders and his fastballs up in the strike zone, which he can't afford to do. I don't care how hard you throw. He's not making quality pitches, even though he does have the count 0-2. I think that would be a better indication. As Davey Johnson can certainly note that from the dugout.
And it just misses off the plate. 1 ball, 2 strikes to count.
Again, when you do have elbow problems, you're just not able to snap off the hard breaking ball, and when you put that full extension on the fastball, which maybe makes a difference between the ball moving and not moving, The elbow sometimes inhibits you from doing that.
Popped up, down the line, and into foul territory, and Foster can't get there. Still a ball and 2 strikes. So they have obviously opted to work on Russell, despite the fact he's having a better year than Yeager. Two out, winning run at second. 4-4 tie in the ninth.
Of course, in this situation, Al Carter, who had a conference with Orozco, comes out and says, hey, let's pitch to Russell, but let's make him hit our pitch. If we don't, then maybe we'll walk him. And when you get ahead, you go after him.
Swift foul, still a ball and 2 strikes. Joey Alfantano handling it to third.
When we talked about Orozco getting his pitches up here, you see the good slider breaking down in the strike zone. Bill Russell way out in front of it.
Count even, 2-2.
It just goes to show that there's no guarantees in this game. You get a 2-run lead. If you're manager Davey Johnson, you have your ace on the hill, Jesse Orozco. You figure it's going to hold up, and here you are looking at a loss.
Guerrero goes, and Russell fouls it away. So they weren't paying much attention to Pedro, and he figured he'd take a chance.
Well, it's a good play if you get the third baseman to move like Howard Johnson did, but you're really not even going to make a throw to third base, most likely. And when you get an infielder to move and he hits a ground ball where you were standing, you've done exactly what you accomplished or tried to accomplish. Again, that's a veteran infielder would probably just hold his ground and let him have the stolen base, because there's not a whole lot of difference other than a wild pitch with a man on second and a man on third.
And Russell pops it up, and it looks like we're going to go to the 10th as Santana goes back on the grass, and on to extra innings we go as the Dodgers get 2 in the ninth, and at the end of 9 we're tied 4-4. Back after this message and a word from our local stations. And 1 error, the Dodgers 4 runs, 11 hits, and no errors. Dodgers scored in the first, Guerrero driving in Reynolds, Hershiser with a double in the second inning to make it 2-0. And then the Mets got a couple on Hernandez's double after 2 infield singles in the 6th inning. Heath hit a 2-run homer in the 9th to make it 4-2, but back came the Dodgers as Reynolds drove in run 3 and Guerrero drove in the 4th run with a base hit. So to the 10th, and Rafael Santana to lead off for the Mets. Candy Maldonado stays in the game in right field for L.A. Strike to Santana, with Kelvin Chapman out on deck to bat for Orozco. One and one. Slice to right. Maldonado running hard, but it drops untouched. 1 ball and 2 strikes to count. So Santana, the number 8 hitter, and then Chapman to bat for Orozco next, followed by Mookie Wilson. Dodgers in the bottom of the 10th. Are down to the bottom of the order with Yeager, Anderson, and in the pitcher's spot. Two and two. Still 2 and 2 on Santana. In the College World Series, final score, Mississippi State defeats Arkansas 5-4. Great sports year for the Razorbacks. Won the NCAA track championship last week, track and field. Grounded to third, and on the run, and throwing it out is Anderson. One away. One down, and Kelvin Chapman comes up. USFL Birmingham now leads Houston in the fourth period, 29-21.
For the Mets, batting for the pitcher Roscoe.
Chapman, who platoons with Wally Backman, comes up with his 194 average. 3 for 8 as a pinch hitter. Tom Gorman, who was up early on, he was up in the 5th inning in the bullpen, is up again in the 10th. So we'll see him. Next week, Toronto and the Yankees, and the Cubs, Montreal. Our 2 games on Monday Baseball. Good to be back. Our statistician, Alan Ross. Steve Hurt, one of the tri-authors of the Elias Baseball Analyst, a terrific book, providing the graphics. 1-1.
Looking at Kelvin Chapman, another guy that benefited from Davey Johnson's rise, I guess, to become the manager of the Mets. Played for him in '83 in Tidewater. Had a good year. Was going to hang it up. Had a shoulder injury. Went to spring training. Davey talked him into staying around. Thought he could use him as a platoon player. As you said, platoons with Wally Backman at second base. Hit .289 last year. Had a fine year.
To center, and it's Guerrero taking charge. 2 away. Mookie Wilson will come up.
Center fielder.
He's been on twice tonight with a walk and a single. 1 for 3. Wilson batting .283. Cubs are off today. Montreal won. Beginning the day, 2 on top in the East. And it's quickly 0-2. Howell bringing it up there. So the Cubs will either be a game and a half or 2.5 back. Montreal will either be 2 or 3 back. Brought the last one up at 94. That one's grounded toward the middle and fielded by the Dean. Russell, who throws and gets him as the first baseman Brock stays on the bag after a long look by Stello. Howell sets them down in order as Wilson still has his say here in the 10th inning.
We can see the low throw here. Brock catches the ball. Looks like he has him by about a half a step, but comes off the bag rather quickly, which is what Bill Robinson was upset about.
Back in L.A. after this from our local stations. The left-hander Tom Gorman, who is 3-1 this season, comes out of the New York bullpen. Normally a middleman, and he was up as a middleman tonight, and then the Mets tied the game in the 6th inning, and they opted for McDowell. He comes on as the late man because they've already used McDowell and they've already used Orozco, and Sisk pitched 4 innings yesterday. So Gorman inherits it right now in the bottom of the 10th inning with the game tied 4-4. And the bottom of the Dodger order with Yeager and Anderson. And in the pitcher's spot, due up. Look around Dodger Stadium. Where a number of people left after the top of the 9th inning. And Danny Heath, home run, sent him to the parking lot, where they now listen on radio on the freeway. Game tied 4-4 in the bottom of the 10th as Yeager fouls it back, 0-1.
Tom Gorman not exactly overpowering. Fastball slider, but his best pitch is a forkball. He throws it about, Davey Johnson said, about 6 different speeds. Makes him very effective. Forkball kind of goes up to home plate, not as quick as a split finger fastball, and just kind of sinks. At least it's supposed to.
Sharp grounder, base hit into left field.
Steve Yeager, who came up hitting 125, 5 for 40, with a single to left.
Dave Anderson.
It looked like a forkball right up in the middle of the plate. Howard Johnson, the third baseman for the Mets, is guarding the line, which is what you do in late innings. You don't want a ball hit to your right for a double. The ball rolls into left field.
Now Anderson comes up, probably to bunt. One problem for the Dodgers right now, or one thing that doesn't help them a whole lot anyway, is that Yeager is very slow, and they don't have another catcher, so he has to stay in the game. So it could be tough to bring him in.
Coming off that broken leg, spent 4 months on crutches in a cast this past winter. There's a couple of screws in his leg right now.
And a souvenir from a late season collision with Dave Concepcion with Sid Green. Called up from the minors recently. Coming up to pinch hit next. 0-1 the count. Anderson bunting foul, so he misses a bunt and then fouls one away. And with our game running over our allotted time period, a reminder that as soon as this one is over, we'll have your late local news and then Nightline. Yankees beat Oakland 5-2 as Phil Niekro wins his 7th over Chris Conneroli, and Ricky Henderson homers against his ex-mates, and Dave Kingman homers against his ex-mates. Brooke played briefly with the Yankees.
Was that number 291 for Niekro?
291.
Yep. That's a lot of wins.
Don Sutton in the other dugout tonight is closing in on 300. He lays it down with 2 strikes, and Gorman throws him out at first. So he did it the tough way. Got 2 strikes on him, and then the sacrifice. And now Sid Green comes up with Yeager at second base. Green was up last year. He's a first baseman and an outfielder. Started here this season, then went to the minors, and then came back.
Good 2-strike bunt. Well, of course, all Dave Anderson wanted to do was get it anywhere in fair territory, even though it's hard to move a guy like Yeager that doesn't run well over.
Green with 6 hits this season. He's batting .122, but 3 of the hits have been homers. 1-0.
Sid's kind of been on a yo-yo, the type of guy that'll probably be sent back when Al Oliver comes off the disabled list, or Jay Johnstone.
Got fooled, half swing strike, 1-1. Birmingham holds on, beats Houston by 2. Houston missing a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. One ball, 2 strikes to count on Green. Mariano Duncan is on deck. Tommy Lasorda trying to see his Dodgers get up to that 500 mark, coming in 24-25. San Diego meeting Philadelphia tonight. Dodgers 4.5 back. Dave Johnson's team trying to stretch its lead to 2.5 over the Cubs. Game tied 4-4. Green hits it on the ground to Hernandez. The winning run will go to third, and there are 2 down. Yeager now at third, and Mariano Duncan will be the batter.
It's another one of those situations with first and second base open, 2 outs, winning run on third base. Who do you pitch to? Duncan hitting right-handed at 326. I don't know if I really want to pitch to him.
Maldonado is on deck.
They go for 24. But then again, I'm not the manager, and it appears that they are going to pitch to him. Again, it might be one of those situations where you make your pitch or you walk him.
In the air, curling toward the line and right, and into foul ground to make the catch goes Danny Heath.
to send it to the 11th inning as the winning run dies at third after 10. Mets 4, Dodgers 4. 4-4 tie as we go to the 11th inning at Dodger Stadium. And for the Dodgers, Steve Howe comes in to pitch. The well-chronicled Steve Howe, who broke in with such a splash, having a sensational rookie year in 1980, quickly became the ace of the bullpen, and all of a sudden in 1983, cocaine abuse, suspended, and then following the season, suspended from baseball for a year by Commissioner Bowie Kuhn in 1984, went through rehabilitation, and then had to undergo elbow surgery in January of this year. So he's coming back from a number of problems, and as we said before, Lasorda has been spotting him. He's been pitching fairly well, but Niedenfuhr has really been the key guy out of the bullpen, and Howell as well. But now Howe comes in here in the 11th inning. Wally Backman, who rarely gets to hit right-handed, turns around here, the switch hitter. And tries to bunt his way on. 0-1. Hernandez is on deck, and then we'll see Gary Carter.
If you talk to Ron Peronowski or Mark Cressy, who's the bullpen catcher for the Dodgers, they say that Steve Howe is about 90% back. And has trouble getting loose if he does have to warm up 2 nights in a row or 2 days in a row. In fact, he said it was almost amazing that in the years past that he would have such great, and there you see Ron Peronowski, the Dodgers pitching coach, that he'd have such great stuff. The ball would move, but since the transposition, the rerouting of the ulnar nerve, hasn't quite been the same. Of course, he came back very quickly. The Dodgers knowing full well how valuable he is to the Dodger pitching staff.
1 ball, 2 strikes to count. Howe pitched yesterday in relief when 2 innings gave up 1 run. Still a ball and 2 strikes.
Of course, that 1 run could have been avoided if runners in first and third, 1 out, perfect double play ball. He just kind of forgot, checked the runner on third, and then got him. Really could have had him caught down in the rundown, but didn't. Chose to go to second and almost got Mariano Duncan killed there with a force play and didn't get the double play, and the run scored.
On a play like that, of course, it's not scored an error because you do get the force, and the Dodgers are now into their 4th consecutive game without an error. And their fielding has really been dastardly up until this past weekend.
Well, along with those 62 errors, you do have the mental mistakes. And again, talking to Monty Basco, who was the infield coach, been with the Dodgers for years, he just said, how about, I mean, we can talk about the physical errors. They're well chronicled. I mean, you can just read about those in the box scores. But how about the double plays we don't turn or the mental errors? They all cost you ball games.
Still 2-2.
What makes Steve Howe so effective is that he has great stuff and also throws a lot of strikes. Something you have to do if you're going to be an effective pitcher. Really, whether you're starting or you're relieving.
3-2 on the leadoff man, Wally Backman. Hershiser started, went 8, and Howell. And now Howe, the free agent, working for the Dodgers tonight. As it's line to center for a base hit. And the go-ahead run is aboard. A leadoff single by Wally Backman. 145 lifetime against left-handed pitching.
So we talked about throwing strikes. You don't want to go 3-2 to lead off batter because you don't want to walk them. Took a little bit off. Backman singles up the middle.
Hernandez grounded out, walked, doubled, singled.
Of course, if you're sitting at home, you're wondering if Keith Hernandez is going to be bunting at the situation. You'd like to get a runner in scoring position. But then again, if you do that, you walk Carter, most likely. And then pitch to Foster. Not a bad situation. Guess we'll have to wait and see.
They send the runner on the hit and run, and he fouls it away, 0-1. So that's what Johnson opts
Right.
for.
Well, it's another alternative. Keith Hernandez does not swing at a lot of bad pitches, but he is a good contact hitter, can get the bat on the ball. In fact, and when you do send the runner, what you do is, in essence, you get your middle infielders to move a little bit, creating maybe an extra hole that might not normally be there. Probably wondering what he's talking to Gary Carter about. He's saying, what is that hit and run sign? What is the bunt sign? I've never done it out this year. I'm only kidding. I'm sure he knows the bunt sign.
Semi-pitch shot. Yeager moved out as if it was a pitch out and then stopped. 1-1. 8:24 here at Dodger Stadium. So the game now about 3 hours and 15 minutes old. And following our game, stay tuned for your late local news. And then Nightline coming your way. Live interview with Patrick Buchanan. First live interview with the member of the president's staff, with Ted Koppel, coming up. Up high, and down he goes on a pitch that I'm not quite sure was that close, but it's easy to say from up here. 2-1.
Well, if you're Keith Hernandez, you do hang in there. That's one thing he does against left-handed pitchers. You see the ball just run a little bit back. As you said, it's not that close, but a lot closer if you're down on the field.
Stanley Stewart wins it, and Donnie Moore gets beaten as Baltimore takes care of California.
Doug DeCinces off the disabled list. Similar back problems to what Dave Anderson, who is now playing third base for the Dodgers, has.
Not a lot of fun to look forward to, as Doug's had a number of
he's had a chronic back problem, and I think that's one of the reasons that he was traded over to California for Danny Ford, and they were a little bit suspect of whether his back would be able to withstand the rigors of playing every day at third base in the major league.
On the hit and run again, it's fouled away. So they sent Backman, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. St. Louis in the 6th inning in a rain delay. So that game is now official as they lead Houston 8-1. And the Phillies lead San Diego 3-2. Here, a 4-4 tie with nobody out in the 11th inning, and they send Chapman. The pitch is low. Yeager's throw bounces to second base, and Backman is able to steal it. So Wally Backman stealing second base after they had tried unsuccessfully the hit and run twice.
Well, Backman's an excellent base runner. Again, a situation where you know you're probably going to have the pitcher take a little bit extra time to throw a strike. Billy Russell makes a nice play. That ball could go into center field, but he does block the ball with his leg or bottom of his glove to keep Backman at second. Nobody out, a pretty important play.
Hernandez to the Pine Tar rag again, and coming up with the count 3 balls and 2 strikes. Yeager has been very proficient in throwing men out this season. That's only the 4th steal in 14 attempts. Grounded to the right side. Brock will make the play, but on the play, Backman advances to third. So Wally is there, and with 1 out, they're looking for a fly ball at least from Carter.
Well, Keith Hernandez did exactly what you'd want him to do. Give himself up. Of course, a lot of that had to do with the excellence of Steve Howe. Got a fastball up and in on him, but he knew that if he hits it to the right side, Backman will get to third base with less than 2 outs, only 1 out. Of course, the possibility of the swing resulting in a base hit also is there.
Our season debut of Monday Night Baseball, late local news to follow, and then Nightline. As we are in the 11th inning, a 4-4 tie. Gary Carter will be walked intentionally here. Last year, he and Mike Schmidt tied for the National League lead RBIs with 106. So George Foster comes up. What they'd love to see is Foster do what he did back in the 6th inning when he came up with runners at first and third and hit into a double play. The squelch net rally that had tied the game. Baltimore a winner. Seattle leading Detroit in the 9th. Red Sox win. Yankees win. And here a 4-4 tie.
If you're Tommy Lasorda, you have the luxury with a guy like George Foster that can't run. You play your first and your third baseman in. Play your shortstop and your second baseman back at double play depth. And hope that he hits the ball to one of them.
Dodger infield looking for the DP. 1-0 the count. Trying to keep it down, and it's 2-0.
And this is where maybe pitching 2 days in a row catches up with you. You need that little bit extra either for the strikeout or the pop-up. Run that fastball away, and if you're not used to doing it, it's hard to do it.
2 balls and 1 strike to count. Good pitch, 2-2.
Well, there's no substitute for talent. Steve Howe gets behind George Foster 2-0. He comes back with 2 fastballs, challenges him, pops one off foul, and throws the other one right by him.
On deck, Danny Heath, the left-handed batter who sent the game. Well, didn't send it into extra innings, but gave the Mets the lead in the top of the 9th. And the Dodgers tied it as Foster goes down swinging. Good job by Howe, keeping it low and in and getting it. Foster walks back a long 0 for 5 tonight.
Well, he established his fastball, made George respect it, and then got him out with a slider. Good low inside slider.
Karanowski goes to the mound now with Danny Heath coming up. Heath 1 for 3.
Now, I would think that pretty much what he would be telling them is that you have to watch the first and third play. In a situation where a lot of times with the winning run on third base, you will start the runner, hope that the pitcher will be distracted by him.
9th inning, this gave the Mets a 4-2 lead. Coming with 2 out of the top of the 9th inning, but the Dodgers came back on a couple of doubles and a single by Guerrero in the bottom of the 9th inning to tie the game. So Heath with 2 out, runners at first and third, takes up and in, ball 1. 1-0. Same pitch that drove Hernandez back. Texas wins, and pretty well for Bobby Valentine. And Milwaukee and Kansas City, after getting started, winds up getting rained out. 2 balls and no strikes. Al Michaels and Jim Palmer in our season debut of Monday Night Baseball. The Mets and the Dodgers in the 11th inning. A 4-4 tie with 2 on and 2 out, and the pitcher strikes. And he's going to try to get Heath the same way he got Foster. Falling behind in the count, and then he came back to strike George out. 2-1. Left field. Reynolds. Side retired. Steve Howe works out of trouble, and down go the Mets in the 11th inning. Maldonado will lead off for the Dodgers in the bottom of the 11th. 11 before 4 times. From London on Saturday live, 4:30 Eastern Time, the WBA World Featherweight Championship fight. Eusebio Pedroza and Barry McGuigan on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Best fight in a long time on Wide World. You will want to see that one.
Well, you'll definitely see it.
I will definitely see that one on Saturday, and then next Monday we've got Toronto, New York, Chicago, Montreal. Your late local news to follow our Dodger-Met game, which goes to the bottom of the 11th inning at the 3.5-hour mark. 4 runs, 12 hits, and no errors for the Dodgers. 4 runs, 9 hits, and 1 error for the New York Mets. Tom Gorman. He'll face Maldonado, Reynolds, and Guerrero here in the bottom of the 11th inning. Candy Maldonado is 0 for 1. Pinch hit in the 9th inning and flied out. That's very successful not only in extra inning games, and then graphic takes you back to last year, but in one-run decisions as well. They have been winning the close ones, and what a difference that makes in the standings. Strike, 0-1 to Maldonado.
Of course, they have the makeup of a club. When you go to spring training, you know that to be successful, that's what you're going to have to do. When you have a pretty good defense, they're leading the National League in fewest errors permitted. And there you see the fork ball in the dirt, but fools Maldonado, and he swings at it. You know that's how you're going to win the pennant, if you're going to win the pennant. Once again, fork ball just going down, and Maldonado swings at it and then steps on it.
Maldonado now 0 for his last 25. One ball, 2 strikes. You go 0 for 25, you better start checking the OAG for flights to Albuquerque. 2-2.
I think that was an interesting thing Tommy Lasorda, the manager of the Dodgers, was talking about. He said when you get in a slump, he said you can't hit and you can't field. Didn't say anything about pitching because they've been doing that very well. It just seems to me when you have a young player like Candy Maldonado who goes in an 0 for 25 slump, who's never done it before, you have a tendency to think about it. A veteran player says, what the heck, I've done it before, it'll happen again.
0 for 26 is coming up. 1 out. Backman taking care of him. And R.J. Reynolds coming up. Mets last year won their last 8 extra inning games. Make it an 83, and then 11-1 last year, 4-2 this year. So that's how we come up to the 23 out of 26 for the Mets. R.J. hitting 284. Very late swing. 0-1 again. He's hobbled. We saw him limping early on, and then he gingerly came around the bases to score the tying run on Guerrero's single in the 9th inning. So it would be very tough for him to beat 1 out. Change, and that's ripped into center. He can afford to trot the first after that one. Winning run at first, but again the Dodgers are, well, shall we say, hamstrung with a guy at first base who has trouble running.
Well, if you're Tom Gorman, you throw a fastball and the guy swings when it's in the glove, you come back with a hanging changeup, you've really done the hitter a favor. And that's exactly what he did. I'm not too fond of that pitch selection. Usually you're out on the mound. The easiest place to tell when a guy is really late on your fastball. You come back with a breaking ball and you hang it. Now we see Bill Bueller, the Dodger trainer, running out to talk to R.J. Reynolds.
Now, if you're wondering why they don't take him out, well, they've got the only other non-pitcher is Terry Whitfield, who could go to the outfield. And Lasorda just might be forced to send a pinch runner in for him. But Whitfield is the only non-pitcher left on the bench.
I'm sure RJ is saying, hey, you know, I like it up here. I'm on a hot streak. 3 hits tonight. Let's not pull a hamstring. You're talking disable this for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month sometimes if it's a severe hamstring. You're also talking about a situation, and it looks like he's going to stay in the game, that if you get an extra base hit here, you're going to try to score. Extra innings, tie ball game. And he might not be able to do that.
Guerrero with 3 hits tonight, so Pedro starting to shake the doldrums, batting .280. Guerrero with 5 homers and now 20 runs batted in. And Gorman isn't going to make it any easier on Reynolds' legs.
Well, you never take anything for granted, and you don't really know how bad his leg is hurting.
Well, after watching him run around the bases tonight, I don't think he's faking it. Strike. 0-1. Matter of fact, his lead tells you that he's hurting. Tiny little lead that he's taking. Just the way he comes off the base. Strike the count. Two and one on Guerrero.
Situations where if you have a healthy runner at first, 2 and 1, you might send him. Hit and run. Get those middle infielders moving, open up a hole. Create that first and third situation. Greg Brock coming up.
Pass swing grounded to the left side, and Santana opts to go to first for the out. And Reynolds advances to second. Crowd doesn't like the call on Guerrero.
And we talked about Tom Foreman's forkball, and there, just a good forkball. Guerrero's pulled, check swings. Santana knows he doesn't have a shot at second, gets a sure out at first. Long, accurate throw, gets him by about a half a step.
Now you've got Brock. Here's the situation where you've got the winning run at second, you've got first base open, but you've also got lefty against lefty, whereas if you walk them, you've got the right-hand batting Russell coming up. Brock tonight, 0 for 5. Comes up hitting .224. It will be tough for him to score on a single at second base. The one thing, though, Wilson is playing extremely deep in center field. If Brock hits one up the middle. I mean, Mookie is way back there. Strike. 0-1 the count.
Well, even though you're aware of the fact that the man on second, Reynolds, is the winning run, we saw what playing too shallow can do for you in the 9th inning.
And there you can see how deep he is. ABC News Nightline. Interview with Patrick Buchanan coming up, preceded by your late local news. 36,935 looking on. First inning, the Dodgers scored. Then another run in the second. Mets tied the game with 2 in the 6th. Went ahead on Heat's homer in the 9th. And then the Dodgers came back with 2 of their own in the bottom of the 9th inning. Here, 2 out.
the 11th. 0-1 the count. Reynolds at second base. 0-2 now. 4-4 tie in the bottom of the 11th inning. Gorman in relief of Lynch, McDowell, and Orozco. Reynolds with a sore leg at second base, and 2 down.
Threw a slider to Brock this year. He's hit 2 rockets. So here we have 0-2. You see what kind of pitch selection he has tonight.
And he hits a ground ball to second base, and it's fielded by Backman, and that's that for L.A. in the bottom of the 11th inning. No runs, 1 hit, winning run left at second. To the 12th we go, a 4-4 tie. Dodgers and Mets on the season debut of Monday Night Baseball, heading on to the 12th inning in L.A. At 8:47 here on the coast. Steve Howe in a game that started shortly after 5 o'clock, working on the Mets as we go to the top of the 12th. Late local news following, and then Nightline. And many of the games in the East, of course, are over. Those starting pretty much simultaneously with this one.
Leading off for the Mets.
We were going to maybe a race between the end of this one and the end of the one in San Diego that started at 7. Orioles win. Seattle wins over Detroit. Red Sox win. Yankees win. Rangers beat Chicago, and Milwaukee and Kansas City postponed. Cardinals lead in the 8th, delayed by rain, and they're in the 7th down south with Philadelphia 3, San Diego 2. Johnson is the batter, and he grounds one right under the glove of Howe and into center field for a base hit. That's the 7th time tonight that the Mets have gotten the leadoff man on, but they've scored in only 2 of the innings.
Well, Howard Johnson, 12 home runs last year, all of them left-handed, switch-hitted hitter. Bill Robinson, the batting instructor, was talking about trying to get him hitting at 165 to hit the ball back up the middle, and he did exactly that. Took a fastball from Steve Howe right back up the middle for a leadoff single.
Now Santana comes up with Anderson protecting against the bunt at third, and Brock ready to charge if necessary, and Raphael already squares and lays down a nice one. That's going to move him over as Yeager throws back to Duncan, and it puts the go-ahead run Johnson at second base on the 2-4 sack. Now Gorman's spot, and it looks like it'll be Christensen as we watch it again.
Well, perfect sacrifice bunt. Steve Yeager just leap on it. Talked about his throwing arm. Right on the money for the out at first, but it does the job. Gets Johnson in scoring position at second.
The rookie, John Christensen, who has been platooned with Danny Heath since the injury to Darryl Strawberry, will come up to bat here. Nets have used 3 pinch hitters tonight, none with success. Blocker grounded out, Hurdle grounded out, Chapman flied out, and now Christensen, 2 for his last 26, comes up hitting 122. Montreal beat San Francisco this afternoon 4-2. The rookie St. Clair, who pitched here yesterday in relief, getting the win, and Frank Williams throwing one away on a bunt in the 15th, leading to his loss.
Well, it kind of illustrates what you talked about. The Mets an outstanding extra inning record. That means they're doing things right. Perfect example there, the sacrifice. Get the leadoff hit. Need to get the runner over, and you do it. At least it creates a situation where you can get the go-ahead run. Puts a little more pressure on Steve Howe, pitching for the few times 2 days in a row.
Christensen from this area
Born in Downey, living now in Fullerton, gets fooled and fouls it on a check swing at the plate.
Pretty good year last year at the AAA level in Tidewater. Hit 316, 15 home runs. Again, once it shows a little bit difference between AAA ball and the major leagues. Of course, he probably played regular last year, and this year he's playing platoon with Danny Heap in right field.
0-2 is just off the plate. 1 ball and 2 strikes to count. Mookie Wilson on deck when the Dodgers come to bat in the bottom of the 12th inning. Russell, Yeager, and Anderson are the 3. 4-4 tie. And he runs it in on a breaking pitch. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Looks to me the big difference between Steve Howe after elbow surgery and before is really his breaking ball. Always had a great slider. He could throw almost any time, any count. It's not snapping off quite as bit, but then when you consider that he was throwing 5 weeks after having elbow surgery, he's made quite a comeback.
Popped up, foul ground, and there's a lot of room in foul ground here. Thus, the catch made by Brock. 2 down. Johnson still at second. Christensen gone. Met pinch hitters 0 for 4 tonight. And back to the top of the order as Mookie Wilson makes his 6th plate appearance. Comes up 1 for 4 plus a walk. Mookie Wilson, nicknamed by his grandmother. Real first name, Willie. Wasn't for Grandma, we'd have 2 Willie Wilsons.
He'd be saying the other Willie Wilson.
Right, that's right. Willie W. Wilson.
It looks like they're going to intentionally walk him. Willie hitting 316 from the right side. Again, it's a choice, and there you see manager Davey Johnson of what you want to do. Possible go-ahead winning run on second base. Do you pitch to Wilson or do you pitch to Backman?
And he's going to pitch to Backman, who has a horrid lifetime average against left-handed pitching, but singled to center and singled sharply off Howe in the 11th inning. So Wilson goes down to first with Howard Johnson at second. The Mets and the Dodgers tied 4-4 in the top of the 12th inning. And instead of sending him up, Ray Knight comes up to hit for Backman. So with runners at first and second, Davey Johnson's going to send up a man he thinks can drive him in, despite Backman singling sharply in the 11th.
Well, again, Davey, we talked about how he relies on the computer. He also relies on percentages. Probably sat there and Howell got behind Backman 3-2, kind of laid one in there, and he singled up the middle. In this situation, I don't care what the count is, you don't take anything off. You go right after him.
Ray Knight with 2 on and 2 out. Grounds it sharply fouled, and the count 0-1. Knight's had a struggle this season, physically, and at the plate. He's hitting 188 with 2 homers and 8 RBIs. Another man who underwent some surgery early on this year.
Well, I think he had the arthroscopic surgery on his shoulder last November and then had problems with his elbow. Went right in and they did more arthroscopic surgery on his elbow.
1-1. That's what I love about Dr. Palmer. They don't win the appeal. You mention injury and James will tell you how many stitches, the doctor's wife's name, and how much Blue Cross
I don't
picked up.
say, you know, how's the family, how are you, how you hitting? I said, what's the last thing that they did to you surgically,
Right.
or how you feeling?
I've seen you walk up to guys. How's the ulnar nerve? 1-1 pitch. A little swimmer right back to Steve Howe, who gets into trouble here in the 12th and then works out of it again. 2 innings in a row. Still 4-4 at the end of 11 and a half. Back at Dodger Stadium after this from our local stations. Al Michaels and Jim Palmer, and we welcome you to Good Morning America. Keep looking around for Joan London. This, by the way, is just the first of two. The second game of the doubleheader will follow 25 minutes afterwards. As the game approaches the 4-hour mark, the Mets and the Dodgers tied 4-4. Davey Johnson is forced to bring in a fellow who's had some arm problems this year and went to the minors and pitched 4 innings yesterday in Doug Sisk.
Well, that he did, and of course he thinks he's back. I don't know if one good outing means that, but certainly if you've been struggling, it will build up your confidence.
Leading off for the Dodgers.
There you can see the stats, 1 and 2 with a 6.67 ERA. Not exactly the Doug Sisk we saw last year. Had a lot of mechanical problems, and you sit up here in the booth and talk about them, but the bottom line is that you have to go out there and pitch well. Good sinker ball pitcher with a little bit of a slider, but he just struggled.
He starts with Bill Russell by working inside. Ball 1. 1-0. Ray Knight stays in the game at third base, or at second base, rather. No, he stays. He's in at third, and what they've done is moved Howard Johnson over to second. That's grounded to third. And they do not get Russell, as Russell dislodges the ball from Hernandez, and Keith is shaken up on the play. Throw appeared to get there in time, and Russell came right into the arm of Keith Hernandez. And that's about the last thing the Mets would need right now, but it doesn't appear to be serious. The Dodgers get the winning run to first with nobody out. So Russell is aboard as they check out Keith Hernandez.
Well, Doug Sisk has the good sinker. See it running in. Russell just tops it. See the throw. It's a little bit up the line. Hernandez wants to catch the ball, and also kind of the glove is hit by Russell. One of those injuries that you may not know how serious it is till tomorrow.
So Russell is on, and now Yeager comes up, and it's scored as an infield single for Russell. And Yeager comes up for the second time in the game. He singled in the 10th inning, comes up here to try to bunt the man into scoring position, to try to bunt Russell over. And Yeager lays it down, but foul. 0-1 the count. Local news following baseball, and then Nightline. Russell held on by Hernandez, who's still shaking it off at first base. And it's bunted, and it's caught by Johnson at third, and Russell alert enough to get back to first base. Experienced base runner Russell, who has seen it all, knowing the ball was popped up, and get back in a hurry, and that's exactly what he does. So at least they avoid the double play, but Yeager can't get the job done.
Here we see the bunt attempt. Again, kind of dropped the bat, not the proper way to do it. Pops it up. Fine running play by Howard Johnson. Somewhat redeemed himself for the, even though it wasn't judged as an error, kind of an errant throw to first on the play before.
Now Anderson is the batter, and he takes low, ball 1. 1-0 to count. Lynch started, McDowell, Orozco, Gorman, and now Sisk.
It almost puts Tommy Lasorda in a position where if you don't sacrifice the runner, you might want to think about either the stolen base, which Russell doesn't do too often. He used to have pretty good speed, but it's a good situation. 2 balls, no strikes, even though Sisk has been wild in the past, to maybe start the runner and execute, or try to execute, the hit and run. Anderson, a pretty good contact hitter. little bit, and there you see Doug Sisk, the Met pitcher. The mechanical problem is not the right shoulder of Sisk, even though he did have some arm problems late in last season, but his left shoulder, which is a very important shoulder for a pitcher, was flying out, therefore affecting his control. And he had trouble not only throwing strikes, but getting the ball down in the strike zone, and not only walking guys, but getting hit very hard.
Third time tonight that Anderson has drawn a walk, and now Terry Whitfield, the last of the non-pitchers, comes up. Whitfield leads the league in pinch hits with 7. However, they all came early. And he's been slumping since. His overall average is .298. Whitfield has spent 3 seasons in Japan after stints with the Yankees and the Giants. Hitless in his last 12 trips to the plate. 1 out, winning run Russell at second. Anderson at first. And it's a strike to Terry on the outside corner. 0-1.
He's an excellent pitcher and Fisk, but Whitfield's the type of guy I think the Dodgers really felt would hit a lot of home runs, but bat slowed down a little bit. Good left field hitter, likes the ball out over the plate, but doesn't like it on the corner where Sisk threw it on the previous pitch.
0-2 the count.
One of the most difficult jobs in Major League Baseball is coming off the bench when you haven't been playing regularly and trying to hit a guy of a quality type pitcher like Sisk.
Backed up is Santana, and he throws the ball away and into right field, and Russell comes in to score. Santana got there and then threw it away, and they would have had a sure force out. So the Dodgers get a break, and the Dodgers, who have been stymied by bad defense all season, get a defensive break as the Mets can't turn it. Santana throwing to Knight, who had just come into the game at second. And so the Dodgers win it by a score of 5-4. Stay tuned next for ABC News Nightline, immediately following your late local news, except on the West Coast. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines. Flying is United's job, and United is now serving 50 top cities in the United States. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.
So the totals are correct. For the Dodgers, 5 runs, 14 hits, and no errors.